A game of chess is like a sword fight. You must think first, right? Before you move.
Just what you
Welcome to the Cinematic Void Podcast. Cinematic Void is a cult film series that hosts screenings in the Los Angeles area as well as virtually. I'm your host, Jim Branscombe, and joining me as always is...
Hey, what's going on? Nick Vance, Paranoid Futures on social media. You can find the Cinematic Void on the World Wide Web at cinematicvoid.com, as well as Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, and all major podcast platforms, including Patreon.
Yes, including Patreon. The patron saint of what makes the void work, sort of, or whatever. I don't know. But if you enjoy what Nick and I do, or any other the ventures that Cinematic Void does, like YouTube and the Cinemadness movie, hey, join the Patreon. Keeps the wheels greased, as they said. But
What is a patron saint?
I guess like someone that's very important. Like patron saint is someone that takes care of things. Like a patron saint of like.
Are you making this up?
No, I'm actually trying to give you a real answer. But anyway, but we thank you. We thank you, or those of you.
It's not Catholic related. The patron saint.
You know what? Before we even get in this fucking podcast, I'm gonna look this up because I have no fucking idea. I think I'm giving like a real answer, but like.
But yeah, man.
Or now you're just jumping into it.
So what's been going on?
No. We're gonna talk about what a patron saint is.
Yeah. So anyway, I mean, we will.
Let's see, patron saint, or a patron saint, or patron, hollow, or heavenly protector is a saint who in Catholicism, Lutheranism, Anglicanism, Eastern Orthodoxy, or Oriental Orthodoxy is regarded as a heavenly advocate of a nation, place, craft, activity, class, clan, family, or person. So now that is what a patron saint is. So you weren't wrong. It did have some Catholic in there.
Yeah.
But it's basically any like a good. It's a person that is pure at heart that is supporting something.
Guardian angel.
Guardian angel, yeah. All right. Anyway, you were asking me what I've been up to. Jesus fucking Christ! I like that this is just fucking derailed right off the bat. We do a whole podcast on fucking Teen Wolf, and then we're spending like 30 minutes already on patron saints or whatever. But anyway, what the fuck you been up to, Nick?
I went to Portland a few weeks ago to visit some friends and saw Unwound play with Steel Pole Bathtub and Klickitat Ikatawi.
Never heard of the last band.
Really?
Yeah.
They're like a part of the San Diego. Like they're basically I honestly I've listened to the record a bunch, but like I didn't realize until I saw them live that they're so it's just Antioch Arrow Jr. Antioch Arrow Light. It's pretty good. It's good. They're good. They're fine. But and I think it was Mario that was like in like Hot Snakes and all those bands.
Okay.
Played drums for them originally. I'm not sure if he did at this show. But,
Gotcha.
But yeah, they were good. They're good enough. And little Danny.
Shout out to little Danny,
who I went up to visit. Back in the day, he was like screamo little Danny. so that was part of like, not that they're exactly screamo and not that he was exactly into screamo, but it's just there's a point in time where that was like his bag, you know?
Yeah.
And so we went to the show and he didn't know that they were opening and he's just like, what the fuck? Like he like geeked out. So it was like super cool. He's just like, wait, what the hell?
I like we've also now invoked a former, Baltimorean that only like, I would say 5%, maybe 3% of our audience would know who that is.
Who, little Danny or the band?
Actually, correct on both fronts. Jesus Christ.
About 3% of our listeners are well aware of little Danny.
Yeah, probably 2% of the band, but
yeah, I had a sick ass time in Portland. The venue, I think it's called like Revolution something, but the venue was an old high school repurposed into a fucking club, and like the bottom floor was turned into a restaurant. It was sick ass place. Revolution Hall is what it's called.
Okay.
Super sick. if you have a chance to go see a show there, I highly recommend it. There's lockers in the hallway.
That's cool.
There's lockers on the way to the restroom. It's just a school restroom. Yeah, I haven't been to Portland in like a decade, so it was cool. And there was a day where like they went off and did something else, so I just like I walked really fucking far from one. I like walked downtown from where we were and like walked over like the big bridges and shit. And like went to their, I forget the fucking, there's like a huge bookstore they have there that's like maybe the biggest bookstore I've ever been in. It's Powell's Books. I don't know. It's a thing.
I'm trying to think because I went to Portland in like October 2022 is when I went, and like I'm trying to think what all I did. I would definitely went to a bunch of record shops. I think Blackwater was the one I went to, which was the punk one, which wasn't open like 90% of the time I tried to go.
That's how you know it's the punk one.
Yeah, and finally, like the last day I went, it was finally open. Like I kind of knew who the dude was that worked there. I think he definitely knew Mad Average. So
cool.
So that anyway, I wouldn't mind going to Portland again. Hollywood Theater's up there, beautiful fucking movie house or historic theater. So I don't know, but so you went to Portland. You actually traveled. I didn't actually travel in October like I was supposed to. Did you do anything else? I'm trying to think. What else was there? Shows? Was like October feels like a fucking blur after Beyond Fest.
Yeah. No, I just did that. I think.
You just went to Portland and
I
just
did that. I don't know.
went to Portland and then went straight to the projection booth.
Yeah.
Essentially. Yeah, I guess I guess since we're talking about you and projection booth, we should talk about your glorious moment, which we dedicated a podcast to, a whole episode to, which is Teen Wolf in that screening. You want to talk about that?
Yes, and I'd like to remind you that we did a podcast about this, and the podcast is a commentary over Teen Wolf, so you can actually watch it and listen to us talk about it simultaneously, so do that. But yeah, we did.
And I do want to mention, if you're on Patreon, there's the special version of that. I don't want to go into too much detail what that special version is, but if you want to watch the movie with the commentary in one fell swoop.
There you go.
Yeah.
Yeah. Do that instead. That's way easier. You don't have to like sync the shit up.
Exactly.
Just go on our Patreon.
Yeah. It's sitting right there.
The Patreon saint.
The Patreon saint. Be a Patreon saint. Be a patron saint.
That's what we'll call our listeners from now on.
The Patreon saints. Goes well with the Vatican Commandos, which will come up later. But anyway.
Nice. Okay. Yeah, man. I don't know. I ain't been doing anything, man.
Well, no, we're talking about Teen Wolf. Like,
I don't know, man. I just haven't been doing anything.
You don't want to talk about the screening?
It's just been a series of getting past things.
I mean, you got the fucking jacket. You got the tattoo.
I did get the. So yeah, we did Teen Wolf, and I projected it on 35mm. Glorious. Truly, as Jim would say.
It is truly glorious. I can't take credit for like calling it Inglorious 35mm. I forget who actually first used it. I think it might have actually been a real tagline. But like, and before you get in there, I want to do something like whenever you talk about a film format, it's in, not on. Like if you do in CinemaScope, in VistaVision, in 35mm, in 16mm, in 70mm, it's in, not on. I see I see a lot of people who use
I
on.
mean, I think I switch both out. I switch them out.
Well, you know, there's another projectionist on our team, Ivan, who's been doing it since like the dawn of film.
Yeah.
I mean, not really, but like he definitely projected the OG Star Wars, and he will tell you about it. Yeah. He'll also show you all photos of his cats on his iPad, but that's not related. But like, he's the one that's like the correct terminology is in 35mm or in. So just throwing it out there. But anyway, continue about
in it. We're in it.
We're in it. Teen Wolf.
Yeah.
You projected it. You introed it.
I bought this dumbass ugly jacket. That's too small for me.
What? Seemed to fit you fine at the show.
Oh, I could never even zip that thing up.
What size was it? Like a youth medium? Youth medium?
I don't know. It's a medium.
Oh.
Got that jacket. It's hanging up. I'm gonna get it framed like a sports jersey. Yeah, it was fun. It's fun enough.
You got the tattoo,
You know?
the booth tattoo.
Got the tattoo. I didn't have to give him too much knowledge. I just let him watch the film.
That's all you had to do. Deanna came up and played the coach
Yeah,
and ate cookies and made it.
I did get some Oreo cookies.
Yeah, well, it was a good night all around. It's a good crowd. Like, I know you were up in the booth and you weren't watching with the crowd, but like Teen Wolf actually fucking killed that night.
I've never done this before, but I stood at the port and watched the movie the whole time.
No kidding.
I've never just like stood there and watched, especially on film. In film, especially in film. That doesn't.
Well,
sound
no,
right. That doesn't.
when you're watching it projected as on film, when you're talking about like when in your advertisement in glorious 35 millimeter, but you are watching it on film. It's like when you're talking how it's presented, it's in. When you're actually watching, it's on.
Jesus fucking Christ, dude.
Look, man.
I mean, yeah, of course. Like that makes perfect sense. Like, yeah, of course, it sounds correct. Both of those ways.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm just going by what the fucking.
Look, man, I'm just telling you what Ivan told me.
Yeah, I'm just going by the old heads. It's like.
Yeah. No, sure. But I'm not. I don't know.
But
I don't know, man. But look, I'm not making movie posters right now.
You're not. But you were watching through the porthole as you were projecting it.
I did, and I didn't miss any changeovers.
No, man, it was smooth. That print was nice too.
Print was really nice. If I remember correctly, the heads and tails weren't even cut, so it was like
so
it was pretty fucking. It doesn't get screened a whole lot. That's fine.
And it's for
Hey MGM, you want to sell me a Teen Wolf print? Give me a shout.
I wonder if they have multiple. To be honest.
Yeah.
Because like, was it an OG print or was it a restrike?
I think it was a restrike. I think it was like early 2000s.
So yeah, probably when they were putting out the DVDs and stuff. Like yeah, because like there wasn't any platter burns, which was nice.
Yeah.
And like for those you who don't know or haven't don't remember any of the 8 million times we ever said it, platter burn is basically there's a projecting system called a platter where you basically take the individual reels and you cut the heads and tails off, which is the leader, and you connect the reels together and make a giant reel when you play it on a platter projection system. However, usually you fuck up your prints by playing it on a platter system because then like where the heads and tails are like taped together because they're just taped because you have to untape them and put the individual reels back after. They get a little banged up, and if you watch a film on 35 and you start seeing a bunch of noise and like scratches and shit popping up, all of a sudden that's usually where the end of the reel is, and you're getting ready for your changeover. And it sometimes makes it hard for me to watch movies because instinctively, once I see that, I start looking for the changeover cue, and I'm not a fucking projectionist, but like too much knowledge. And now I've given you too much knowledge, and I've ruined watching movies now for you probably. Unless you watch it on DCP, then you don't have that problem. But, that was a good night. I should talk about October in general, even though it seems like 3 years ago since October, and I know it's only been a couple weeks as we're recording this. I hate fucking film programming in October. Straight up. It is the worst time of the year for me to do screenings. And I actually did if you want to go on the Cinematic Void YouTube, I do a video about this talking about like how like October is like the hardest month because it's like you're competing with like Halloween parties, haunted attractions, theaters, and like programmers who don't normally do horror and Halloween shit, playing stuff. You're going against all the hits. You're going against horror movie marathons. It's just a lot. And like there's been a few years I've done decent or good, but like usually it's just like I just fucking tank, so I just pretty much play anything. I did pick Teen Wolf because I thought it was going to do good, and it did relatively good. Did Velvet Vampire, which was an Academy print, and that thing, like, one of the new Academy prints from the Corman collection, and that shit fucking smoked.
Speaking of Breaking Bad, I heard that Aaron Paul was walking through the lobby of LF3, and he pointed to his friend talking about the Velvet Vampire poster and said, "Hey, have you seen Velvet Vampire? You should. It's fucking awesome."
I guess I should see Breaking Bad now. Now I feel fucking...
That's a true story.
Now I feel guilted. Now I feel guilty for not seeing it. Like, but then like, did he? But he didn't come to the fucking screening. Could have came to it.
I couldn't tell you.
See, that's the other thing is because like the staff needs to be more intuitive. It's like, hey, Aaron Paul's here. He's talking about Velvet Vampire. Like, give that fucker a comp ticket.
Yeah.
Like fucking, that's how the world works, man.
True.
Anyway, but that did well.
Grease the palms.
Grease the palm. I also did Mute Witness with the homie Josh Miller from Killer Movies with Josh Miller, who formerly Friday Night Frights and also one of the co-writers of the Sonic the Hedgehog franchise, amongst other things. We're actually going to be doing something in December, which I'll talk about later here, I guess. And also did one of my favorite kind of like goofy like horror movies from the 80s called The Horror Star. And
I projected?
You did project it.
I projected.
Yeah, you projected that one. Okay. And that was another nice print for the most part.
Yeah.
Although, like, I understand, like, dude, there's weird changeover cues popping up, like, in the middle of a fucking reels. I'm like, what the fuck is going on?
There's nothing worse than looking out a window in the middle of a reel and seeing that pop up, and you just have this, like, instinctual, like, oh, fuck, like, kind of like a, before I have a, like, kind of react before I have a moment to, like, catch myself. I'm like, oh, wait a second, I'm fine, I'm okay.
I'm assuming that was a Harry Guerrero print, and, like, it was in pretty good shape, but I'm assuming that print had been rebuilt at some point.
It's something like that. Like, it's likely 1,000-foot reels spliced together to be 2,000-foot reels, something like that. I mean, I don't know how old the movie is, but I'm assuming something like that. So that it used, so a reel used to just be half so it was literally the middle of the reel. Yeah. Where we saw those cues, allegedly.
They used to have was films on 10 reels, and then they moved them over to 5 for most 90-minute movies now.
Yeah, that's one way to put it. Yeah.
Reminds me of the Meatballs 2 print, which was still on those individual like Sony has in their archive. I don't know why. We've talked about this when we talked about Meatballs 2, but they have a print that's like a Meatballs 2 on 9 little tiny reels that are on cores. Mm-hmm. And it's brand new. It's one of the best prints I've ever seen.
Yeah.
It's sick. But
But it just came on cores, is that what you mean?
It just came on cores, and there's no cue marks, so they actually had to take the fucking grease pencil and fucking mark those in.
That sucks. It happens, but I'm not a fan of when it does.
Yeah, I mean, but that's that's a crazy archival print. But we're getting off there. Showed our homie friend Mike Cuenca's new movie. One of his new movies, since Mike has made 400 movies this past year, and we're in probably 200 of them potentially.
Yeah.
I mean, I know I'm exaggerating, but not that far off. Did the U.S. premiere of Watch Them Come Blood. You were there to watch that.
I was.
And I think that's going to be coming out on Blu-ray on some Vinegar Syndrome partner label, which I can't remember the name of. Also should mention, since this has come out, that Mindbenders Blu-ray finally came out that we did commentary for.
Oh, cool.
So that's cool. And I'm on another one. We should have something coming our way to do another one at some point.
Cool.
But I'm actually on another Vinegar Syndrome title that I think is coming out in January. And it's not what anyone's going to ever guess that I'm doing a commentary on. So we'll just leave it at that. But anyway, Watch Them Come Blood. What were your thoughts on it? Because we're both in the movie twice.
Yeah, it's cool, man. It's a great time.
Yeah. I mean, obviously it was a kind of a Homer crowd in there, and but it was packed and it played well, and one of the staff at the Vintage Cinemas Los Feliz 3, Edwin, one of the big guys that loves to go. I mean, big as in he loves film, and will complain if I show something on a DCP. He's in the movie, and he probably got the biggest reaction. And he allegedly has seen Apocalypse Now 18 times.
Yeah.
According to the movie. Although after that screening, he's I've only seen it 5 times. I was just improving. He was also eating a giant baguette during the Q&A. He wasn't on stage. He was in the back, yelling stuff. And, I was like, the fuck is going on? Not that it has anything to do with anything.
Weird.
Anyway, Watch Them Come Blood. That's going to be coming out on Blu-ray.
Just standing in the back eating a sandwich.
It wasn't even a sandwich. It was he's in, the streets of Gay Paris eating a fucking baguette.
Okay.
Going by the,
Even better.
You've seen, movies where people were in France and they just go get a fucking loaf of bread and they're just,
just walk around munching?
Yeah. That's a thing in fucking France, but, Los Feliz, I don't think so. Maybe it is. I don't know.
Yeah.
I mean, that's why.
Figure out a spot right there on the corner.
Yeah, it is a French bistro. But I've never seen anyone get bread. Actually, yeah, I have gotten bread there, so I stand corrected on it. They have some good olive oil. You can dip that shit in.
Yeah.
Pretty sick. Shout out to the Figaro Bistro.
Like you couldn't see, but he also had like a little cup of olive oil.
No, man, it was still in the fucking wrapper. It looked like he went. I don't know where he went to get this. He might have went to fucking Ralph's. I guess is there what fucking grocery store is near Los Feliz 3? Like a Vaughn's or some shit.
There's something.
There's
something right up there on Hillhurst.
But yeah, he just had a fucking giant baguette in a wrapper, pulled down, just fucking eating it. Really, that's my takeaway from it. And I don't see any of this from the stage. I heard about it afterwards.
Yeah.
Because had I seen it during the Q&A, the whole focus of the Q&A would have been on that and not the movie.
Mm-hmm.
But what I'm saying is when that Blu-ray comes out, we should be doing a commentary for that. And
yeah.
We will be pointing out every time we show up in the movie and other tidbits and stuff, things commentaries do. We're currently in November, been doing the Art House of Horror series. I don't think we plugged it because it wasn't ready yet, but like been doing all 35, did the Diabolique on 35 recently, just did The Haunting, which is a fucking great movie. Haunting was the first movie I saw when I was like moving to Los Angeles. Like I was still working my old job, and I had a freelance gig out in Long Beach that I was doing video and editing for. And I went with Leslie because she was living out here at the time. We went to I think it's like, I don't know what the theater is called in Long Beach. I think it's still there. And I'm sorry, I can't remember what it is. But they had a midnight show in The Haunting. And that was the first movie I saw in L.A.
Oh, wow.
And I also probably fell asleep during it because it was midnight and I can't do that shit.
Yeah.
But watching it in Los Feliz 3, that movie still works in a way that like I was prepared for. Like there's a couple like scares there in the movie. And like I knew they were coming and still got me.
Nice.
And by the time this comes out, we'll probably be finished up in November. We're going to be showing Repulsion with our homie Scott Carlson from the band Repulsion.
Cool.
Kind of a cool, well, I mean, it's obvious because the band's named after the movie, so. And just figured a different angle in being able to show that movie. Then I could show Kuroneko, which is Japanese, like, version of Edgar Allan Poe's The Black Cat. Also a rape revenge movie.
Cool.
So, definitely one of the underrated but great Japanese horror movies. Do want to talk about December since we're talking about lineup. Actually, before I get in that, I want to talk about a little side mission I did recently, I guess. Actually, I didn't talk about any of the Halloween shit. So I'm going to hold off on November or December. And like, I think I'd mentioned on the podcast I was going to New Orleans. And I did not go to New Orleans.
Mm-hmm.
And the reason being is the hotel I had booked, if that's the word is booked. The hotel I had booked changed ownership and I guess canceled my reservation and it shut down and I never got a notification.
Yeah.
And I could still had access to the previous place that was running it and they were like, "Oh, everything's cool." But I went to go check my reservation for some reason because I was like, "Oh, I can add a breakfast add-on and get a vegan breakfast for another $10 or something like that." And then they had a little map of where the hotel was, like a Google Maps thing connected to their website, and it's like hotel permanently closed. I'm like, yo. So I tried emailing. I tried the chat. I couldn't get anyone. They had 2 phone numbers and a WhatsApp number. I called the WhatsApp number, and like the person answered was pretending like, "I don't know what you're talking about." And I was like, well, that's a good sign. I finally get through, and they're like, "Oh, the hotel is still open, but it's under new management, and we don't know if your reservation's still good." I'm like, what the fuck? I contemplated changing my card, but then I realized, like, there's a good chance that, like, they're all fucking idiots, and I don't want to go to trouble changing my card.
Yeah.
Unless I have to. So nothing happened. So I didn't go to New Orleans. I mean, I could have got another hotel, but, like, by the time I figured this out, it was, like, ridiculously expensive to get a hotel, especially on Halloween.
Yeah.
And I just converted my like flights to flight credit, so I can go again or go somewhere else at some point.
Cool.
I mean, I do want to go to New Orleans. I was looking forward to it, but it just like shit wasn't going to happen.
Yeah.
So I just stayed here for Halloween. Ended up doing Universal Studios Halloween Horror Nights. I did it twice.
Yeah.
Because I got some free passes. Because I wasn't going to do it this year. Because like last year was like, eh. But I figured out a system. And it happened both times. Paid $10 for the early access to go in at like 5:30 and start doing the mazes. Worked it out that within like 4 hours was able to do every single maze with no issues.
Right on.
Worst wait was maybe 30 minutes.
Okay.
And I was like, okay, there's a way to do this. And like the first time I went with Everem and Nicole from Beyond Fest, and we were doing rides too. We were there a little bit later that first time.
Yeah.
But like we did rides, and like we skipped one maze because Everem doesn't like the fucking Insidious franchise. He's like, I don't want to do it. But then we did the Quiet Place one, which is a franchise I don't really particularly like, but
Yeah.
it ended up being one of the worst mazes because it was all animatronics. But I went on Horror Nights on the last night. It was open, which was November 3rd. It was a Sunday. And I was curious to see like how much phoned in it was, like how many like scare actors are like, eh.
Yeah.
And like I definitely went through the Quiet Place because I just wanted to be a completist, and like half the animatronics weren't working when I was going through there. So it's like those weird
Right.
fucking.
Like Halloween is over. Why are you here?
I mean, it was,
Right.
well, I think
Like that. I mean, that's what I'm saying. It's their last night. You know, they're just like, fuck, man.
well, the reason why is because Halloween landed on like I think a Wednesday or a Thursday.
Yeah.
And I think it's like, well, might as well milk the weekend. I mean, it was packed there, but like getting in early, just moving around. Yeah. Just no problems. So yeah, but I stayed in for October. I dyed my hair for a Halloween costume. Went to Josh Miller and KJ, who works at the Academy's like Halloween party. I dressed as Severin, or Bill Paxton's character from Near Dark.
Yeah.
I was like, well, I guess I got to dye my hair black. I mean, I guess I didn't have to do that, but
Yeah.
so now I got dyed black hair for like the next couple months, which has apparently been like getting rave reviews. And it's like, oh, guys thought it looked like some old fuck. Is that what it is? It's like, oh, you should keep it. I'm like, I don't know, man. I don't want to look like I'm a fucking over the hill goth going to fucking Bar Sinister.
Yeah.
Not gonna do that. Also did Not Scary Farms for the first time.
Mm.
Did that with the homie Kellen, who was paranoid the whole time. Because I'm gonna call him out here. Kellen didn't want to pay. Well, I offered to even pay. Kellen drove, but he didn't want to pay for the parking. He was like, we can park in one of the neighborhoods. And I'm like, I looked on a map, found a neighborhood, and there's no signs that say, like, you're going to get towed or permit only, like the things that, like, are enforceable. There was, like, one sign that said, like, hey, parking in this neighborhood's only for people that live here and visitors. But, like, how do you, like, you can't enforce it. So we parked there, and it's not that far from one of the parking place we'd have to park at anyway. So it's like, save $35. He was paranoid that his car was going to get towed. I'm like, you're good, dude. It's fine. But then that was like the underneath terror of the whole fucking evening was like, is his car going to be there when he got back? I'm pretty sure it was. But I'll say this about Not Scary as opposed to Universal. The mazes are fucking longer.
Yeah.
And there's more like scares, but like I feel like I had better jump scares at Universal. It's shit that actually got me. Where like there's some cool mazes at like Knott's Berry, don't get me wrong, but like, and they're longer, and it's like, I guess less people if you want to get into it, but it's just like, I don't know. I mean, they're both fun. I mean, I might do them both again next year, depending.
Cool.
But we'll see if I get free passes. That kind of sweetens the deal. But we had to walk back to his car, and like we get to the first. He parked in the second cul-de-sac, but we get to the first one, and he starts freaking out because his car is not there. And I was like, "Dog, just walk another 20 feet. Your car's right there."
Yeah.
And he was like getting ready to have a meltdown. I was like, "Just keep moving your car." And like, sure enough, his car is right fucking there.
Yeah.
So I'm just busting your balls, Kellen. But like. But, other thing is, like, we could have just paid $35 and parked and not worried about it. But, I don't know. That's Halloween season. Talked about November. Another thing, I did a side mission. That was what I was getting to. I did a Q&A with Moby. Like famous electronic musical artist Moby, who used to own the best vegan restaurant in LA, which was Little Pine. And he made a documentary called Vegan Punk Rock Movie, which is about veganism and punk rock. And it's actually free on YouTube if you want to go watch it. And because I'm one of the few people on the Cinematheque staff that's vegan, and I guess listens to punk rock, it was kind of an assignment. They're like, hey, you want to do this? Yeah. So, and then like, I think one point he wanted to do something different, but then he just like, here, we got Jim from Cinematic Void that can do it. So they signed off on it. And I don't know. The thing I realize now is like, we were fucking old. Because everyone was like, hey, I'm doing a Q&A with Moby. Anyone that's maybe a couple years younger than us.
Yeah.
Maybe not couple, maybe like 5 to 10. Was like, who's Moby?
It was weird.
Like, as like Dog had like platinum songs.
Yeah.
Like, I'm pretty sure he was like huge, fucking huge.
Let's just say like, I mean, people remember like Aphex Twin, and I was going to suggest that maybe that's because of like meme culture, but I would argue then that like Moby got memed way harder.
Yeah.
Like Moby, you should know who Moby is just because people have, people have memed him to death.
Yeah, he got memed when he got the animal rights tattoos down his fucking arm, where it literally says animal on one arm and rights on the other arm.
Yeah.
Like,
my favorite one says, I'm racist, down his arms. That's the one that I send everyone.
Jesus Christ. But, you know, he was a nice guy. It was him and the producer of the movie and their dog, Bagel. So I got to do a Q&A with the dog.
The dog's on stage?
Dog was on stage. It's a good dog. Well behaved.
It sucks.
How would it have made it better if the dog was just pissing everywhere and biting people?
Yes.
You got a point.
Yes.
I mean, it would have added some drama. But, yeah, that was...
But it's cool. I wish I could have made it out to that. I would have liked to have seen it.
Like, the punk rock thing, like, you know, I applaud the talking heads they got. This is like John Joseph from Cro-Mags, like E. Mackay, like, you know, Ray and Parcell from Youth of Today. Definitely had one of the members of Earth Crisis in it, so cool. Got to that point. Didn't get into the hardline stuff, and I think probably skipped over that because of the homophobia and the anti-abortion sentiment that's in the hardline shit. We're like, every life matters. It's like, calm down, dude. Just calm down. But like, no, it's actually not a bad documentary. And like, we didn't talk about Moby's punk band, which is like, people are like, well, why are you talking about electronic artists that did a song with Gwen Stefani making a documentary on punk rock and veganism? Well, he was in a punk band called Vatican Commandos back in the day. Mm-hmm. And, you know, I guess he knew all those dudes because his band opened for those bands or whatever.
Yeah. I
don't even know if that Vatican Commandos stuff is available anymore.
No, I don't think it's on. It's not on like Spotify or something. You can find it on YouTube.
Well, it's YouTube, where all the obscure punk records live.
True.
Actually, yeah. So there's that. December, you're going to be doing a bunch of robot movies. Going to hit some highlights. Going to be doing a Q&A with Galen Hurd, who produced and co-wrote The Terminator, which I'm actually stoked for. Got good friend of the Void, William Sandell, production designer. He did Hocus Pocus, but for a while, he was like Paul Verhoeven's guy. So I'm doing RoboCop, and he's coming out, and Robert Gould, who was the set decorator, is coming out too.
Fuck yeah.
Doing a new movie by Scooter McCrae, who you're familiar with because he did Shatter Dead.
Yep.
His new movie is called Black Eyed Susan. Lead actor from that movie, Damon, I forget what his last name is. I'm sorry, blanking, but he's going to be there in person. Scooter McCrae's zooming in.
Cool.
So that's happening. Showing Lady Terminator on 35.
Nice.
And shockingly, that shit's selling like hotcakes right now.
Cool.
And then going to close out the month with another screening with the homie Josh Miller. We're doing Deadly Friend together. We're showing the print from the Academy Film Archive. It's actually Phil Blankenship who works at the New Beverly's print. So shout out to Phil and shout out to the Academy for letting us use that glorious piece of film.
Sweet.
One of my favorite Wes Craven movies is Deadly Friend. Not a lot of people's, but I have a good defense of it, and maybe we'll talk about it at some other point. But I don't know. And the last thing in the world of the void, it's almost January, which is Nick's least favorite time of the month because we're going to talk January Giallo.
Look, man, you don't have to...
I'm just fucking with you. I know you're fine with most Giallo films, just not all of them. But I've started working on some things, and that's all I'm going to say. It's either going to be good or really good. And we'll just kind of leave it at that. That's your January Giallo.
Hey, real quick before we take a break, probably by the time this comes out, the Lonelier Than God podcast, which is a podcast about the band Hum, Jim and I were on a recent episode, so that should probably be out on all the podcast services by the time this comes out. Yeah, Lonelier Than God is what it's called.
So I know it's a Hum reference, but I don't know the exact Hum reference.
Yeah, probably some lyrics or something.
But anyway, speaking of podcasts, as we're getting here, we have a theme for this podcast, which you probably couldn't tell from this open-ended intro segment of recapping and rambling. But you and I have had many discussions, and I think we've had discussions on this podcast about Letterboxd. And for those of you who aren't aware, which would seem weird if you're listening to a film podcast, Letterboxd is an app. It's been around for, I don't know how fucking long, probably like a decade plus at this point, right?
Probably like 9.
Nah.
I just said a number.
Yeah. It might.
Nah.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I know I started using it when I started like doing Cinematic Void because I was using it as a way to document like all the movies I screened. But I wasn't logging movies that I watched. That kind of, it's been more recent years. But anyway, Letterboxd is super popular. It's definitely, I'd say, I hate to use the word influencer, but it's definitely an influencer now. They get in the press junkets, all that stuff. They show up at like, Beyond Fest or American Cinematheque screenings. They're interviewing people.
They do their thing.
They do their thing. And I guess the reason why we're talking about it, because I think it's like, with anything with film, and especially in like the way we're moving, culturally or social media wise or something, I think it's something to look at because I feel like Letterboxd has a lot of positives. And I'm going to say like, I think we're both on the same page. We're both pro Letterboxd. We both have Letterboxd accounts, But I feel like there's some good things and there's some bad things that come out of it. And we're just going to kind of talk about this shit. So we're going to take a quick commercial break here, but when we return, we're going to be, going into the mystery of letterboxing here on the Cinematic Void podcast.
And there was something new, kid. Yo.
This is a Super Game Boy.
And it goes like this. Plug Game Boy games into the Super Game Boy.
Plug Super Game Boy into the Super NES.
Check this out. Game Boy games in color on TV. It's amazing. And games like Nuke Donkey Kong. You can change the borders and choose your own color.
That's funky.
How about Super Game Boy and all 350 Game Boy games? Incredible.
Oh yeah, coming through with my Shaolin crew. 2 cents for a case, give me St. Nas brew. In the midst of broken bottles and crushed up cans, met the cows in the jam or I'll try.
With St. Ides in my system, crack another, I'm blessed. Let's go get the next one and get over. The object is to stay sober, lay on the sofa. Better yet, down my shoulder.
I'll be champ, stressed out, could never be son. Ricochet jelly, hit the deli for a cold one. Naturally blessed, yes, my rap is like a laser beam.
Welcome back. We are now going to be talking about that mystical, magical app that so many cinephiles use called Letterboxd here on the Cinematic Void podcast. We already explained in the previous segment what Letterboxd is, and, I'm assuming if you're listening to this podcast, maybe the majority, higher than the percentage of you who know who Little Danny is, has Letterboxd on your phone. And for those you don't, I'm going to say, like, out of all the social media apps you can have, Letterboxd might be the best one, and we'll get into the reasons why.
Now, did it start off? It probably just started off as a website.
I don't know. I really don't know because, like, as I kind of mentioned, I first heard about it, or people were talking about it when, like, I started working at the Cinematheque in, like, 2013 or 14, I think. Actually, it's 14 because, like, this is my 10th anniversary working there. I know right around... Actually, I think I had a personal one before I had a Cinematic Void one. But I specifically started the Cinematic Void one just to kind of like, that's cool. I can have a list of all the movies.
Yeah. Yeah.
And kind of look back on like, wow, look at all these things I screened. Granted, that first year was like, well, I got 5 movies and that's probably it kind of thing. But like, you know, I was using it more for lists and I wasn't really logging movies. But
like we've both been longtime users of Last FM, for instance. So we're just like big on I know me personally, like, yeah, I'm big on like just having a big list and like being able to look at like all the media I consumed. Like there's definitely something to that.
Yeah, I mean, years ago there was a website called DVD Aficionado, and I'm sure there's something that's replaced it since where you could log all the blue or DVDs you own. Like there's like you know Discogs where you can put all your records and like
right. And well, some people I know use Discogs because when they're out record shopping, they literally don't even know what the fuck they have. So they have to look up on Discogs and go like, oh yeah, I have this record.
So they don't double buy because like, you know, what do you feel like is the worst addiction before we kind of get into this?
The worst addiction?
Of
drugs.
Well, in the physical
alcohol.
No, in the physical media collecting. Is records the worst?
Probably more of a bigger pain to move.
Yeah.
It's like they seemingly take up less space. You know what I mean? Like my fucking Blu-ray collection takes up way more space and I have way less than I do records, I think.
Yeah.
Maybe not way less, but quite a few less, I think. But they take up a fuckload more space, but they're not as heavy.
That's true.
So that's the trade-off.
Yeah, I don't know why we're having this little sidebar here, but we were talking about basically, you know, collecting and documenting and tracking. And like, I know there's other things you can do for like baseball stats because there's people that do it for baseball or like that kind of stuff.
I would love to have a list of just like all the Blu-rays I own on Letterboxd, and I can do that.
Yeah, you can do that. And actually, yeah, you can make a list. So I'm not sure where Letterboxd popped up, but I do think it's a genius thing because it's like, hey, you can track what you're watching and what you own, or like you can use it for multiple different things.
Yeah.
And I think that's the beauty of it.
Like when I first started using Letterboxd, here's my testimonial.
Okay.
And yes, I'm a big fan of Letterboxd. Like when I was working behind the counter at the Egyptian, like you know, there's just a lot of downtime behind the fucking concession stands, you know, and I caught wind of Letterboxd and just looking at it as like a similar to like a Last FM sort of thing where you're just kind of logging stuff. You know, I wasn't concerned about like reviews or something. I just wanted to go through and mark like every movie that I've ever seen that I've watched it. And like, I wasn't even, I don't know. Yeah. So like I spent a lot of fucking time, but I found like different various methods to like go through. I don't know. Did you have the same experience? Like when you started using it, did you like, you know, at that point in time, you know, like you'd probably seen 10 times the movies I have, right?
Yeah.
And you know, so do you do that or?
I've been doing it more recently.
Yeah.
Like when I got it, it was just more of like it's another social media tool to promote Cinematic Void.
Sure.
Because like you don't know what's going to actually help you. I mean, do I think I get people that are like going to screenings based on following me on Letterboxd? I don't really know. I think it's more like tied into everything else I do. But like I liked it because like, you know, as I said, it's like a way to document because you get the poster art or the Blu-ray cover or what various forms of art.
Yeah.
And it just like it's kind of cool to look at that list. And I was using it more for lists or like, you know, making recommendation lists and stuff like that. But I wasn't actively logging or marking watched on shit I'd seen. Sometimes I would. I actually had to go and retroactively go through like all the movies I screened for Cinematic Void and mark all of them as watched.
Right.
Because it was like 99%. I'm like, which fucking movie did I not mark as watch? And like it, but thankfully it has an option that you can just view the things that you haven't watched.
Oh yeah.
So there's a lot of intuitive stuff with it. But I think it was 2022 I paid to get the subscription because it had stats. It would give you stats of like what genre you watch, which director you watch, which country of origin, like types of movies, like all that shit.
Totally.
And I was like, I think it's like $16.99 or something like for a year. And I know there's like a higher tier, but like for $16.99, like you get your end of the year stats or stuff. It's like the Spotify, like, or Apple Music does it too, where it gives you like, this is all the shit you listened to this year.
Right.
It gives you a breakdown like how many new movies you watched, how many old movies you watched, how many things you watched obsessively because you can't sleep and you're putting on Carnival Souls for the 7th time that year or whatever. I'm just talking more for me. But in 2022, I actually started actively doing it. And it's mostly because 2022 was the year I started really actively watching shit again.
Right.
Like, I was making a point. Like, part of it was like, I was making an effort to watch the movies I was screening in the movie theater again. Because there was a point, in various points during Cinematic Void, I would program something and I'd like duck out, go to the bar, go do something else. Like, just wouldn't engage with it.
Yeah.
And I think there was a lot going on. Also, like 2022, because 2020 and like, I don't think we were back in the theater until like summer 2021, at least at the Arrow, and then like LF3 and all that. Like, I didn't do my first screening until like, what the fuck was it? Was it like, maybe it was August? Yeah, it was August of 2021 was the first Void screening back.
Okay.
So
what was the screening?
It was Cobra.
Right.
You were there for it, weren't you?
there.
Yeah. It's a good screening. Great movie. Shout out to Sly Stallone. Not that I know him, but.
Yeah.
But I think I just felt inspired to like, because I was going through a lot of shit. And I think like I was just, you know what? I want to document the things I'm watching again. Because it's just like, it was something personal for me. And like, oh, I can rate these out of 5 stars. And like, we can talk about rating systems. Because sometimes you rate stuff, sometimes you don't, right?
Yeah, kind of. Yeah.
I just like, I treat it as fun. And like, there's definitely movies I've rated 5 stars that aren't 5-star movies. But they're 5-star movies to me. And that's something we'll get into. But like, it was just kind of fun, and it made it kind of, dare I say, fun or exciting, or gave a little more incentive to like watch shit again.
Yeah.
It also like,
would it be fair to say Jaws is a 5-star movie, but it might be a 3.5-star movie to Nikolai?
Oh, it definitely is.
Is that fair to say, or is it fair to just say fuck Nikolai?
I don't want to say fuck Nikolai because I do like Nikolai, but fuck that rating. That's fucking insanity.
Yeah.
Like, I feel like giving it 4.5 stars is too low for Jaws. I feel like it's a 5-star movie, like for a lot of reasons, but I'm sure someone can make a convincing argument as to why it's not, And like, as much as I want to give,
I don't think they can.
No, it can't. Nikolai's just fucking wrong. But like,
yeah.
But in Nikolai's defense, like, not every movie's made for everyone, and that's kind of the beauty of it. Because like, I see stuff that I think is like, an obvious masterpiece, and someone's like giving like 2 stars to.
Yeah.
And I'm not talking about like my like Joysticks or Burial Ground 5-star ratings. I can clearly see why someone's giving that a fucking 0.5 star for either movie. And like, it's kind of valid. But like, I don't know. But there is, I guess, since we're talking about ratings, we can talk about like the performative aspect of Letterboxd, which is, as much as I think it's cool and like I enjoy rating stuff and it's for me personally, some of you motherfuckers take it way too seriously.
Yeah. Okay. For one, let's clown on people that they're the people that are like, well, 5-star means this and 4-star means this. It's like, yo, we know what a star rating means.
Yeah.
I don't need you to. We don't need a key in your bio to just decipher the code of the star rating.
Well, then you see other people that have their breakdown of like cinematography 4.5, acting 3, writing 2.
I can't say I've seen somebody write a review like that.
I don't follow anyone that does that, but I've seen people post screenshots of it.
That's too sick.
And it's just like, my number one thing to people that do that, you're not watching the fucking movie. You're watching the movie in a sectional way.
Well, I think that a lot of people are, and for one, I think there's something even just performative about. Well, again, back to like Last FM, there's something that once you start using a tool like this or app like this, whatever you want to call it, right? Like it eventually, whether you want it to or not, it's going to start to dictate what you're listening to, what you're watching, like entirely. Yeah. You're never again, everything that you watch is going to be performative to some degree. And I feel like I feel like maybe I am just speaking about myself here, but I don't know that any of us are like immune to it.
No, and like I'm gonna say,
I don't think any of us are like above it. It's just like once you start using something like this, where now with Last.fm, for instance, right? Like you could like you could like turn shit off or something. You could like make it so that I listen to this and I don't want people to like publicly see that I listen to this.
yeah, you just delete the scropples.
So you like delete it, you whatever. But then like so with Letterboxd, you have to like actively go in and log something. So like, but yeah, with the whole world or your 5 friends or whatever the fuck knowingly seeing your feed of like what you've been watching, well, you curate it. You curate, so like at that point you're curating literally what you're watching. Also, let's not forget a little thing called fucking lying.
Yes.
Or just not watching a movie at all. Maybe I watched the beginning, but I still logged it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? There's probably a lot of that too. And then there are people out there that also, that like, you know, whether it's just like someone they don't like, a director they don't like, you know what I mean? You could just go on there and just like give things super high ratings, give things super low ratings, like just to fuck with the rating system, the algorithm. And, you know, just for no reason other than to just be a little prankster, be a little destructive.
But I also don't think it works the same way like Rotten Tomatoes and like people that go and review bomb and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Because, like, you know, I think there's enough users on Letterboxd for every asshole that's going to go rank. I'm trying to think of an example new. Like some Christopher Nolan thing. Like every movie that Christopher Nolan makes is 5 stars. Because there are people, that's
right.
their belief system.
Right.
That's
I'm the guy that goes on Letterboxd and rates all the Christopher Nolan movies half star.
Yeah.
That's my lot in life. That's what I was put on the earth to do.
But I think those cancel each other. I think the people that are very performative, like 5-star masterpiece, regardless if there's problems with the movie, and the people that are just being a fucking hater get canceled out. And then you also got to think there's people that don't do ratings. They'll just do the heart emoji. They'll just like the movie or don't like it. That's their rating system. Or there's people that just don't put shit and they're just logging it. Yeah. Because, like, if you look at, like, whatever the top movies on Letterboxd, they kind of mirror which is, like, the top movies on IMDb. Because it's all just, like, I don't know, man. It's all, like, it's all the performative likes of, like, oh, this is the greatest movie. And, like, because this has more 5-star ratings than another movie, it's a better movie, which is not necessarily true. Because at the end of the day, all ratings or all film criticism comes down to opinion.
Well, I also just think that, like, I think it's something to take into consideration when thinking about, like, the ratings and all that stuff is, like, the various tiers of cinephile.
Yeah.
All the way down to, like, literally not being one.
Yeah.
And being, like, and then also being, like, the ultimate cinephile and all the things that land, like, in between film bro.
Yeah.
I can't think of any other good categories, but you know what I'm saying.
There's film bro, there's like film student. I mean,
right.
I mean, there's
but I guess kind of what I'm saying is that like, Letterboxd, at least for a while, maybe not anymore. And I'm just speaking out of my ass here, but like you have to be up to like a certain tier of film person to like even like entry level like Letterboxd. Like I feel like it's still kind of gate kept to a certain degree where it's not just straight up like normies. You have to have some degree of film understanding, right? Am I wrong in that?
I think you're 100% right.
I don't think it's crossed over yet to like straight up like household name normie, like just people that just go, I don't know, people that go to the fucking movies, man.
Yeah, it's not the people that are going to AMC like once a month, or like the people that like just watch the new movie after they hear about it on TV or during award season or whatever that is. Like, you know, I think general population wise, Letterboxd is probably like not even a blip.
Also a comment on Letterboxd, not a quick little aside, but But like before Letterboxd, whenever I needed info about a movie, like I would go to fucking IMDb, right? But once Letterboxd came along, it changed everything. And like when I wanted to know most of the things that I needed to know about films, I would go to Letterboxd and blah blah blah. Would never use IMDb, but now that I run film, I use IMDb almost every day.
Well, you have to, because if you're looking at like your format and like what the aspect ratio is, like because like,
and it's you want to look at various. You want to look around a bit when you're looking for info. If you can't figure out something about a print on your own, you want to look at various sources. But IMDb is definitely pretty well stocked.
Yeah. There is some inaccuracies and shit wrong on IMDb, same with Wikipedia, but because
you can find them.
But like for the most part, like your basic information you need, like if you're like, what year did this film come out? Like if you're looking at a print, because like you have to do print inspections.
Yeah.
And you gotta look up your different film stocks or different eras have different
it'll tell
codes.
You the different film soundtracks. It'll tell you the aspect ratio. So like all that stuff is mostly evident from just looking at a print, but
sometimes it's good to have clarity and
you just want to verify whatever. So you just make sure you got everything in order. So IMDb, a great resource. I'm sorry I trashed you when Letterboxd came out, but I'm back. IMDb.
I mean, because like the thing is, and like things that unless you're doing projection or you're in like the repertory cinema, like you're working a repertory cinema, Letterboxd is a good tool. It'll tell you the actors and that kind of stuff, but like it ain't telling you shit like how to actually present it, because like you can get an open mat film print and be like, yo, how am I supposed to fucking project it? Is it 185? Is it 178? Is it 166?
Yeah.
Like
it's not so evident just by looking at the frame.
I think IMDb is good for that information. And I think Letterboxd, while like has a lot of,
in other words, like it's a thing that Letterboxd is missing that it could eventually they could come around on just adding some specs.
Yeah, technical details. Because I mean, I'm going to call out a lot of cinephiles now. The amount of times I've shown a DCP and I have someone that like, I know has a Letterboxd thing, and I see reviews like beautiful 35 millimeter print.
Damn.
And it's like, I'm not going to say who. Actually, I don't know who, but I occasionally like
I'm not gonna name any names.
Yeah, I'm not gonna fucking like.
I don't know them.
I don't know, but I've definitely seen reviews.
Yeah,
like
that's fucking hilarious and embarrassing.
Yeah, I've had people come up and tell me to my face like, yeah, that was a great print. And I'm like, it's a DCP, because I don't want it coming out that
I wonder if every once in a while though, when someone does that, hey, it's a great print. I wonder if that's kind of like.
They might mean DCP, but like
yeah, it's like calling a fucking.
It's like
calling a Kleenex a Kleenex.
Yeah, which could be fair, but like
I don't know. I'm trying to give the benefit of the doubt here.
But I think sometimes it is, but the majority of the time is
they're just generically saying like film, but they're saying print instead. I don't know. I'm trying to give the benefit of the doubt here, but maybe they just got their information, their wires crossed somewhere. What makes them think that?
I think there's some of that, and I'm going to say there is some of that, but there are people that actually think they watch a 35 millimeter print when it's a DCP.
Well,
but I'm going to say a good DCP should make you feel like you're watching a good film print.
Yeah. Okay.
Because like you should have the right amount of grain and texture and color and all that.
I'm with it.
I think like it came up twice in a row. It came up during the Howling and Bring Me the Head of Alfredo Garcia screenings, because both of those were like 4K DCPs.
Yeah.
And like they looked beautiful. They looked how the movie was. And I know there's certain segments of people like, I'm not gonna go see that because they're not film prints. I'm like, all right, you can go watch a ragged ass fucking pink fucking print of either of those movies.
Yeah.
And I'm not opposed to watching faded prints of certain movies, but like I also like pick and choose that.
Nice restoration, man. Whew.
Nice restoration can fucking smoke. Like seriously.
Hell yeah, dude.
But I've also seen bad DCPs where like, color timing's off, you get an overzealous director who wants to be revisionist history, changing shit.
Yeah.
There's that kind of stuff. But like we're getting a little, I guess, off top. But like there's people that mark the format in their Letterboxd review.
Yeah.
You know, I mean,
Yeah.
I mean, I do it on the Cinematic Void list. Every film on screen, if it's in 35, I list it as 35, or if it was 16, or if it was, you know, there's a couple of things I did in like 3D, 35 millimeter.
Yeah.
And like, I just, you know, it's also more from my memory
Right.
too, because like,
So I not to get too far ahead here, but I think we're both definitely agreeing that Letterboxd, just like existing as it does on its own, is like it's a net positive.
oh,
Sure.
definitely.
And I think it's a positive for film in general, and kind of like stokes the flames a little bit and gets people a little more excited. It gets like, yeah, it's and the way we haven't talked about it yet, but like, yeah, it's a social media platform. Basically, like the only thing it's missing, the only reason it's not a fucking dating app is because you can't DM.
Yeah.
You know, but I think that the social aspect, despite the fact that yes, of course, people can be performative and people can log things that they didn't actually watch and everything else just to be cool, just to say you did. But at the same time, like I know I look through it and see things that other people watched and either add to my watch list or then I go watch it or whatever else. And it's just like, I think that it really kind of fans the flames of cinema, and maybe that may not necessarily translate into ticket sales, but at the same time, like,
Actually,
I think we're breeding like a new generation of cinephiles and getting the people that are, you know, closer to our age more stoked on it than ever.
well, I'm actually going to say it in like, I don't have the data to back this up. So this is just gut feeling. And this is something I've been thinking about as we've been talking here. There's been a boom in repertory cinema, like people go in theaters, like a new and younger audience, and all that. And I would be remiss if I don't give Letterboxd some credit for it.
Dap them up.
Yeah, because like, because, you know, I show a lot of movies that I feel have played around town.
Yeah.
A lot. But when I do, like, who here has not seen this movie? 80-90% of the audience raises their hand. Just did The Haunting. Most of the audience hadn't seen it, which is good because then I don't have to like do a long intro. I don't have to spoil shit, and I can like, hey, if you enjoy this movie, come back next week when I show Repulsion or Kuroneko or RoboCop or whatever, you know?
Yeah.
And I think like Letterboxd has a hand in that because like, as you were saying, like if you see someone log a movie, it's like, yo, what's this shit? And you look in it, it's like, oh, I got added to my watch list.
Totally. Like people, you know, your friends, whatever on there that you know have good taste. Like you see something pop up that you don't recognize, and you instantly like you want to click on it.
Yeah.
What the fuck is that?
Exactly. And like, you know, I don't always go and look at like the reviews of like the movies I screen. Sometimes I do, like if it's a newer movie or it was like a brand new restoration or it's a movie that like means a lot to me, and just like part of it is just see, did I sell this movie right? Did I sell it in a way that the audience like got it? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And like I think the one I remember going back and looking at is when I did Cemetery Man, Della Morte, Della More, and like looking at the response and like the people that like who were in that screening who fucking got it, who had their mind blown. My favorite one was like Tim Burton, You Are Nothing.
Cool.
For a review of Cemetery Man, and I was like, all right, I did my job.
Cool.
And like, and then like there's been other ones I've seen where like people go in and like, and I don't know if we should pivot to this right now, but I guess we can. It's like the people that like who watch a movie and don't know how to fucking watch a movie, but then will write about how their opinion is like set in stone. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like I've seen reviews where people like get like,
You mean our friends that watch the first 10 minutes of a movie and then they go out into the lobby and hang out on their phone? Or what do you mean?
well, I'm not talking about that person specifically, but there are people like that. I can't control this. Also, and it's one of those things where we've talked about like people laughing during movies they shouldn't laugh at or like stuff like that. You can't control someone having a bad take.
The internet was a mistake. Like that's the thing though, is like and then it comes to shit like this, and it's just like you just got to go like, yeah, well, I mean, the internet was a mistake, but here we are, and now everybody has a fucking opinion.
And it's like I'm okay with people having their own personal feelings on films.
I'm not.
Well, I'm going to explain to why I am, but I still have a fucking problem with it. you're allowed to, whatever your takeaway from a movie is, it's your valid opinion. Even Nikolai's shitty fucking 3.5-star review of Jaws, that still doesn't make sense. I know we're picking on Nikolai for that, but like Nikolai's got some other fucking like head scratchers in there. But like that's his feeling. That was his vibe. Although his Carnival of Souls one where he's like, I was on my phone for fucking half of it. It's just rewatch that movie and reread that thing. It's been a year now, man. It's been a year since we've done this podcast and we called you out for this. Rewatch Carnival of Souls, Nikolai. It's on the Criterion channel. It's on every fucking streamer. You have the fucking Blu-ray. Do it. Anyway, but like,
What are you doing?
what are you doing? Like,
What are you doing today?
What
You're
are you
not doing anything?
Yeah, man.
Oh, you have a baby?
You have a baby. You have a job. Get in there. Anyway, but shout out to Nikolai. I don't want to sound like we're dogpiling. We're just
He's barely even a baby anymore.
yeah.
Watch the movie.
I mean, he's taking his whole family to the movies now. He was at a lot of Beyond.
He's dressed as like a family of crows.
Yeah, that was fucking sick at that fucking Beyond Fest crow screening. Look,
Wait, what is it? Wait, what is it called? What's
what?
a murder of crows?
Yes,
is
it's
what they
murder
would be-
crows.
they would be.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it wasn't family crows, it was a murder crows. Anyway, as we're getting way off topic, but like the internet was a mistake, and like is the bigger point here.
Yeah.
And like there's just people that post their opinion, and it's not in a way, it's in a very condescending way that like everyone else is wrong and only their take is right. And it's like, dog, you're not Pauline Kael, you're not Roger Ebert, you're not even like fucking the shittiest vlogger that like only has a vlog to get into Marvel movies for free.
Yeah, you just forgot your fucking Tumblr password.
Exactly. But like I've seen some like just bad takes and bad readings on movies, and it's just like you can comment, but like what's the point? It's like, because then if you go and look at that person's profile,
I think that is the point.
the point is that they're just fucking inept.
The point is you're supposed to comment, but then also worth considering, much like any like fucking dumbass Twitter post, it's like, is this bait?
You know,
Is this just
engagement?
Yeah,
That's a valid point too.
you know, and that's just another reason why, like, you know, these things are bad.
Yeah. I mean, that's the thing. It's like, you know, I think there's engagement in like raving about a movie that's clearly inept, just as why just taking a big fucking shit on a movie that like is not good. I mean, especially when like people talk about like bad production values. Like, it's different app, but like when I was doing like I did buy like top 10 movies set on Halloween list, and like I posted like I would take the individual like numbers and I would like, you know, number 3, number whatever, and post them on like TikTok. TikTok's that is the Wild West of social media. People give no fucks, have no restraint. I thought Twitter was a fucking like shithole.
Yeah.
TikTok, there's just fucking like people you wouldn't think are on TikTok. Like just the fucking just dredge of humanity on. There's a lot of great people too, but like there's just some people like, the fuck you even talking about? Someone posted a comment when I talked about Halloween 3 being one of my favorite set on Halloween movies, because I feel like we're in this day and the age where like that old take that like this movie sucks because Michael Myers is not in it is way outdated.
I say we bring it back.
Why is that?
Because everybody's all on Halloween 3's nuts now.
You know, it's true. I mean, when I got my Halloween 3 tattoo like fucking 12 years ago, like it was still on like, fuck that movie, Michael Myers not in it. I was like, in my eyes, like, fuck you, you're wrong. And now history is turned.
So the criteria, the
criteria? Where are you going with this?
the contrarian take now is that
It's bad again.
it sucks. Yeah, fuck that shit. It doesn't even have Michael Myers in it. It's fucking stupid.
But like, so what I'm getting at, and I see this in some Letterboxd reviews where it's just like, you clearly don't know what the fuck you're talking about. Someone's like, oh, Halloween 3, it has bad production value and the cinematography's bad. And I'm like, that's just not true.
Yeah, right.
Like,
Say what you will about it, except for that.
It's like, no, I mean, but like every point they made was about something that was technically
Yeah.
and like even if you hate the movie and the movie doesn't work and you think it sucks, and like even if you hate the fact that Michael Myers is not in it, if you're gonna say
it looks fucking great,
and you know why? It's Dean fucking Cundy, who
Yeah.
also shot Halloween and Halloween 2 and The Thing and Back to the Future 1 through 3 and Jurassic, one of the greatest fucking DPs that ever lived. A master cinematographer. You're gonna say the fucking like cinematography's bad?
Yeah.
When it's the same fucking guy that shot the previous 2 movies. That's the shit that gets on my nerves. When someone on Letterboxd so confidently will say something as fact that is easily disputed and proven wrong.
Yeah.
And when they get pushback, they're like, well, fuck you, you're wrong. And like, it's, the problem with the internet is disinformation. Someone thinks they say the wrong fact enough times, or says anything like about a movie or a piece of music or any piece of art, even if it's fucking wrong and it's proven to be wrong or provable to be wrong, like easily figured out it's wrong, motherfuckers will double down on a fucking bad take that's wrong and try to make it true. And there's a lot of that on Letterboxd too. Like, it's like, I'm not the biggest Christopher Nolan fan, but like, I don't think he's an incompetent director. There's movies that aren't for me. Like, I have not seen a Marvel movie since Iron Man in 2008 or whatever fucking year it came out. And I'm not going to watch them. And no one's going to convince me to go back and watch any of that shit. I don't care. But I'm not going to sit here and say like they're badly made. I've seen things from those movies that look like absolute shit, but I'm going to assume there's enough good elements in a lot of those movies that, they would probably be enjoyable, but it's just not for me. You know what I mean? And it's like all those people that dogpiled on Scorsese when he kind of like comment, like not even real criticism, just saying like they're not really movies. They're just more like entertainment. They're not made for art. They're made for like consumption. So you get people who will like on that end of the spectrum, like they just don't know how to gauge art, or like there's people that will talk about directing or cinematography or editing and say these things are really good or really bad without actually knowing what is any of those fucking elements.
Right. I want to be clear when I say that something is bad, I'm not saying it's not for me. I'm saying it shouldn't have been made.
I mean, I definitely have those takes too on certain things, but I'm also trying to be like
charitable
right now. I mean, there's been movies I've seen this year that I've absolutely fucking hated and would have rather gotten fucking a shotgun blast to the face and been put out of my misery than having to sit through it. But then I've seen other people like, oh my God, this is my favorite movie of the year kind of thing. And I'm like, you're out of your fucking mind. But for the sake of like not being an absolute dickhead, even though what the fuck was that? Horn honking. Anyway, it's LA. Welcome to the Cinematic Boy podcast, recorded live and direct in LA. I know I have valid takes on things that suck, and I can tell you why they suck. And I can go into the multitude of reasons, and I will bring up other references, usually other films that I can reference directly, like this movie is doing a version of this, and it's not doing it as well.
Right.
And like some of it might be this movie doesn't work for me. But in reality, there's also the take that this movie is just a pile of shit. And, like, you guys are, like, ignoring that.
Yeah.
And, I mean, it's, is my opinion better than anyone else's? To me, yes.
Yeah.
But, and I know we disagree about shit all the time.
Yeah, I mean, I'm always right.
But I'm guessing it's another part of the performative thing is, like, there's people that, like, think they're, like, real film critics.
Yeah.
And, like, I know there's like an anti-intellectual thing that comes into like being into film now, and like people are like, oh, you went to film school, that's bad. A lot of it's from like the Tarantino school of things because he didn't go to film school and like he's kind of shit on it. And there's been other people that have like shit on film school, but there's also been a lot of great filmmakers that came out of USC or UCLA and things like that.
Right.
I think there's room for both.
I didn't know that there was a backlash on. A modern backlash on like, oh, you went to film school.
There's always in this town. When I first moved here 15 years ago, like when you're like, oh, you went to film school. Oh, you don't really learn nothing out here. It's like, well, I learned how to fucking like shoot a movie properly.
Right.
I know what coverage is. You might live out here, but you clearly don't know how to make a film, because then when I go and edit your fucking shitty short film that you think you're such a fucking genius on your terrible idea. That's the other thing, is like film literacy. And you can tell how film literate someone is by what they log on Letterboxd too.
Yeah, and I mean, that is part of what I'm saying, though, is like, how performative that can be sometimes.
No, I mean, you're not wrong in that. Like, there's people that will like list like, oh, I need to show that I watched such and such, like, classic.
Yeah.
And like, there's a thing that I've noticed, and I actually bring it up when I say like, hey, who here has not seen this movie? There was a period where I would get people that would scoff at people that hadn't seen a movie that was showing. And my opinion on that is, it's fine that they haven't seen a movie, because they're getting to see a movie in a movie theater for the first time. Yeah. There's a lot of things I wish I got to see in a movie theater for the first time, and not a shitty VHS bootleg or like be really happy. Like, I think back when I was talking to Mark from the Coolidge, like the first time he saw Holy Mountain was in a movie theater. I'm like, that's fucking crazy, dog.
Right.
That's like incredible. It's like the first time he saw Seven Samurai was on film at his fucking high school or something like that. I'm like, that's fucking insanity.
Cool. Like,
I would kill for that kind of stuff. So like, anyone that's looking to disparage, like, oh, you haven't seen this movie yet, like, nah, dog. Not everyone has all the fucking hours of the day to watch every movie.
Yeah.
And but I think, as a tool, Letterboxd is good, because I think there's a checklist. There's a cultural checklist of movies that people feel like they have to see. And I think it's also changing now. And I think Letterboxd is also responsible for that. And in good ways and bad ways,
Yeah.
Like, there was always the classic movies that get shoved down your throat. There's like Citizen Kane, The Godfather, Vertigo, like, all those. But I think there's like, other kind of classics coming out. And I think it's like Letterboxd is kind of helping ushering them in. Because there's movies that quietly that people have like, as they're like when certain people log in them and other people checking out, like something that was under the radar is now like considered classic, because it's out there for one, there's more access, and two, it's on the people's radar because you don't have to buy a fucking expensive book on film to learn about said film.
Right.
And, that's also the benefits to streaming. Not every streamer, but, Criterion Channel. It's like, I know I've said, not disparaging things, but like, I've definitely called out people that are just strictly stuck in like I only watch things that have the Criterion C mindset.
Yeah, not me.
Not you. Not the guy that has a Criterion podcast. But like, that'll eventually come out.
Eventually.
One of these decades. But like, I think through Letterboxd, it's a way to discover. And I think that's just as important, because like, it kind of reminds me of something I brought up in the Q&A I did with Moby, talking about like punk rock and veganism. And I was like, because there's access to everything now, be it streaming, physical media, like even in terms of vegan products, like it's more widely available, even though like my big question is like, because it's disassociated from where it came from, like, a lot of veganism came out of activism. Punk rock came out of like, backlash to like certain politics of the time and like that kind of stuff. And, movies were made depending on the country origin, coming out of like, political turmoil or stuff like that. And you get all these things that now you have access to, but you don't have like the baggage with them. And it kind of opens like, it opens up, it's opening up a floodgate, but like, is access a bad thing?
Right.
And I'm not trying to say this in the gatekeeper sense, but like, I think like the thing with Letterboxd is like, you have a tool that will show you every movie ever fucking made, for the most part. There are a few movies that aren't on there because like they're lost or whatever.
Right.
But like, I don't know. Where am I going with this? But like, it just like Letterboxd, I think overall is a good thing. But I do think there's people that like take it too seriously. And like, at the end of the day, whether I rate Burial Ground 5 stars or someone rates it a half star is really inconsequential, because like, is your rating based on something you really feel, or is it performative, or is it a little bit of both?
Yeah.
And honestly, it's a little bit of both at the end of the day.
Totally.
But I do think it's good because I do think like anything that helps people get interested in movies and not just like the movies that play the multiplexes. I mean, you could say Letterboxd probably has a hand in why things like The Substance is doing well.
Yeah.
And why like film studios, like even, the mini majors now, which are Neon and A24, are striking prints.
Right.
And playing around the country, like the fucking Brutalist, which I haven't seen yet. I know Cinematheque is playing again, but like it's having 70mm runs across the country. Like I know both the Coolidge and the Music Box are doing runs.
Cool.
So they struck multiple 70mm prints, and those theaters are going to be doing changeovers on those bad boys.
Yeah.
I'm sure there's going to be places that are going to platter and fuck up those prints, but like that's just part of the nature of business.
Right.
And like, even as something I think is a Letterboxd phenomena in many ways is Barbenheimer. The Barbie Oppenheimer fucking thing. Because people latched onto it. I know it's also meme culture. But I think people were like stoked to be able to log both those movies in the same day or like one after another or whatever.
Right.
And like, I'll be honest, I haven't seen either movie. And I don't have a desire to see either movie. And I'm not trying to be a hater by saying that. It's just like, they're not for me.
Yeah.
And I know a lot of people were like into that, but like, I think that was good. It was good for like all the like art houses that ended up playing it because they made fucking bank.
Yeah.
Like straight up. Those movie theaters that I know, like people that worked at that did Barbenheimer, and not just the multiplexes, like the more art house theaters that picked up both those movies.
Yeah.
Made bank, and like I guarantee you look at Letterboxd around that time period, it's all fucking Barbie and Oppenheimer reviews.
Mm-hmm.
And I think like, performative can be a good and bad thing. And I think like, the Letterboxd aspect is a little bit of both. But I think overall it's good.
Right.
But I do think there's other things that come out of it. Like, there's bad film criticism that's on Letterboxd. There's also people that like use it for agenda where like, if you're reviewing a movie because you hate the filmmaker, and I've seen some for like ridiculous reasons of just like, I hate this person. You mentioned the Christopher Nolan thing. Like I remember like, I forget what movie it was.
I hate Glenn Powell.
Yeah.
I hate Christopher Nolan.
So
I hate The Rock. I hate Arnold Schwarzenegger. I got lots of.
So basically any movie with any of those people, you're just like half a star.
Half a star, baby. Arnold Schwarzenegger, you're going down, son.
You're really trying to tell me the Terminator, OG Terminator, is half star.
It's a 5-star movie, but Arnold, you get a half star, so that breaks it down to like probably about 2.5.
That is absolutely fucking insane. I'm not.
No,
even,
I mean it's the fucking Terminator.
Yeah.
I
mean, Terminator, I think we agree that's a 5-star movie.
But everybody knows it would have been better with old Sly Stallone as the Terminator.
No, it wouldn't be.
It
would not be.
Or like, what if it was like Charlie Sheen?
God, I just pictured it.
Emilio, there's options. We got options.
I don't think Emilio Estevez is going to work.
I should have been a casting agent when I was about 5.
Yeah. It's like, who I want? The fucking men at work in this fucking movie.
Hell yeah. I definitely saw that in the theater when it came out.
I did too.
Hell yeah.
What's men at work to you? What's the ranking?
Oh, 5-er. That's like a solid 3.5.
I haven't seen the movie for a while, but my gut feeling based on what I remember, I think Keith David's in it too. If my memory serves me correct, I think it's like 3.5, maybe 3.
Yeah,
in that range. And I think I think a movie that I rank personally, and we can talk about our rankings, and I'm not going to go into like this movie means this. When I rank something 3.5, that's a movie that I will keep in my collection. I'll probably revisit at some point. And like, while it has flaws or things that don't quite work, it's still enjoyable. There's movies I rank 3 that I feel the same way with, but then there's other movies I rank 3 where it's like, I think there's a lot of technical good stuff in the movie, but the movie I don't like the movie. I appreciate the effort and the art in going into the movie, but it's not for me. But I don't want to like say it's a 2.5-star movie because that's a lie. Because then it's like I'm disparaging like tech things that go into the movie that like clearly I can see are top notch. You know what I mean? You're like, I don't care about your ratings. Fuck you.
I'm getting fucking "It's Not For Me" tattooed on my fucking face.
I hope so. That'll look good on you. Get it in cursive.
Tiny little font right under my eye.
It's not. It's like under one eye. It's not. And then for me.
No, I'm cramming it all under one eye, dude. It's not for me.
God fucking that. God damn it, dude. I need to stop saying it. I think you've now ruined it for me.
Yeah?
I think.
That wasn't my intent, really. It's not for me. It's pretty good.
Yeah, I started saying it because I feel like, you know, there are movies.
I just think the entire concept of like, yeah, I don't know, it's not for me. It's hilarious. That's fucking hilarious.
Well, I'm doing it for a reason because it's like it's
not. Well, it's not. That's not like. It's definitely not a concept you came up with. You know
no,
what I mean?
but it's
certainly I hear other people be like, it's not for me, and it cracks me up every time.
Well, I mean, I think I've
probably said it 1,000 times in my life at this point.
Well, I think I started doing it because it's like, I just can't like, I feel like there's certain movies that that I feel like I absolutely fucking hate and have a visceral reaction to how much I dislike them.
Yeah.
And those movies are more than not for me. They're
Right.
actual piles of
Right.
shit.
Yeah, no, there's a scale here, and somewhere along that scale is, it's not for me. You know?
And like,
I get it.
And there's a lot of 3s and 2.5s that are just like that other people are going to be in love with. And then like, you know, there's, I don't know. I think Letterboxd is good. I do like, and we were talking about it, and we can kind of like, as we're like wrapping up on this here, it's like the no DMs thing. I think like, where do you sit on that? Are you for or against it not having the direct messaging?
I don't know, man. Like, you know, like again, back to the Last FM thing. Like when I visit your profile and it's like highly compatible, you know?
Yeah.
And it's just like if that shit existed for movies, people would be fucking.
Yeah.
You know?
But then there's also like people can like.
But also the fact that doesn't just the fact that purely doesn't exist at all. Like that there's no you know, aside from like commenting on someone's review and then commenting back, and you can kind of back and forth there. But other than that, there's and like following people. Mm-hmm. Aside from that, like the actual social aspect of the app is kind of lost because there's no like direct contact.
And I kind of think it's a good thing.
It is kind of a good thing. But again,
but I can also see on the flip side that like, you know,
if there was like an additional service to Letterboxd where it's like Letterboxd dating and it's like an additional 5 on top of the pro, you know, they would make a lot of money.
They would. And I mean, then you want to talk about,
and all these incels would finally get laid.
Not likely. They can get in the door that they find a girl that also likes fucking Irreversible. But they still have to have the personality, the fucking...
Is this about me?
No, it's not about you.
It was, wait. Are we doing me?
It's like, you know, there's person...
Hey, you finally meet some girl that likes Irreversible. Trust me, I meet them.
I know you do. You're like, when you find that soulmate because you both gave 5 stars to assholes on fucking Letterboxd.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know. But I also think the other thing that would come into that, and it's also with Last FM, is like the performative part of it.
Right.
Because then you're like, oh, this person likes this kind of movies. I'm going to start watching a whole shitload of them, like skew it.
Right.
Which, you know.
I'm going to hit play and turn the volume down and go play a GTA 5.
Just having fucking like,
come and have that shit scrobbling.
Yeah, I mean. It's easier to do that with music. I think with fucking movies.
No, with movies you can just log it.
Yeah, and
I could log like 15 movies a week.
There you go.
Didn't watch a single one.
There you go.
You can do it.
I mean,
it can be done.
I'm sure people do it.
Yeah.
It's like, you know, so we should talk about when is it proper to log a movie. And I think maybe that's where we close off. Because, like, one of the things you've pointed out, I think, numerous times is looking as the credits hit in a movie from the booth and seeing the phones light up and knowing.
I did want to bring that up, that yes, I know that we all see it in the theater when we go, but let me tell you, dude, like, it's different than just like being in the back row and being able to look at all the other rows and you see all the people on their phones. That's one thing. But like, man, when I'm up in the booth, I've got the bird's eye view. So like the second the fucking crawl starts, second the credit starts, whatever, like you just see lights, dude. Throughout the entire theater, it's just lights. And I can tell you, like, at least 2/3 of those. Some of those people are just like, "Oh my god, I haven't looked at my phone in 90 minutes.
Yeah.
Oh my god!" But like 2/3 Letterboxd.
I think that's fair.
Total Letterboxd.
So
You're sick. Good for them.
Yeah. So when do you log movies?
I don't know, man. I gotta say that, you know, if I'm sitting at home, I probably am a log it the second I start it.
Yeah, that's
kind of guy, you know. But I can also tell you that I am the kind of guy that I might not actually watch this whole movie today, but I'll then go back and delete it because I'm an honest man.
I usually, when I'm at home, specifically at home, if I put on a movie, I log at the start, but then I usually go back and do the rating, or if I write any kind of review, I do it afterwards.
Yep.
It's just a marker. But
Now, sometimes I might not hit you with the rating. Why don't you give me about a week to ponder?
Yeah.
Give me some time, bro.
Because there's like, you know, if it's something you rewatch, the rating's going to port over, but you can make changes. And like, I'll say something about Letterboxd. There's been times I watched movies at home and had one rating, and then I watched in the theater and it changed the fucking rating.
Yeah.
Like straight up. Night Game was one of them. Watching Night Game in the theater, like, changed the movie for me. Like, I liked it, but like, it just played better because it played with the audience. And like, those are the other tangibles you got to think that have to go into like consuming any kind of art. It's like, you know, when you see a band live, it's like you can't expect to get the record, but if you get like your favorite songs or like just a fucking good set, like it changes it from like how just listening to the record straight through or just playing a couple tracks, you know. Same with watching a movie in the theater. Like, yeah, it's the same thing, but like there's little variances that are different. You're also in a room with other people, so I think that's a way to affect ratings. But like, you know, for me, if I'm at home, I log the movie and then I can go back and add notes. And sometimes I do wait a week or a couple days before doing it. When I watch movies in the theater, even void stuff, like either I'm doing it when I get home, because not only if it's a void screen, I'm logging that I watched and then I have to add it to the big list.
Right.
You know, but like sometimes if we're going out after the movie, like if I have a couple minutes, like if we order food or something like that, I'm waiting and, you know, we're not really engaged or talking and stuff, like I'll log it then. But if I'm in the middle of a conversation and stuff, I'll wait till I get home.
Right.
And there's other times like I don't do it that night and I have to do it the next day and I have to shift the date and stuff like that. But like, you know, I don't feel like I need to instantly do it because it's just like, why?
Yeah.
Like, what does it matter that I log a movie the second it ends on a screen?
Gotta let them know, dude. Gotta let the people know.
Which is part of the performative aspect. But like, you know, I think there's that. And I also think what's going to start coming out of Letterboxd is film programmers. And I think that's going to be the dangerous thing.
Right.
Because I've said this many times. I've said it in vlogs. I've said it on this podcast. I've said it when I've talked to other film programmers on the podcast. And God knows you probably heard it a million times at this point. Taste is only one factor in programming movies. Because but like, you know, I do think Letterboxd is a good way to practice curation.
Right.
I do think there's a benefit to that. And you can put things together and you can put together a list. You can like, you know, kind of like, I guess, I don't want to say pretend program, but like you can practice like series and, you know, stuff and like put stuff together and kind of look at it on paper. I think there's a benefit to that. I mean, I don't know if there's going to be someone that's purely coming out of just writing Letterboxd reviews that's going to get a film programming job. I could be wrong. Actually, I think Eventually, that's going to happen. There's the Letterboxd influencers. Like every other social media platform, there are influencers. I don't want to seem like I'm disparaging the organization we work for, but we've definitely had like film influencer celebrities do film programming.
Yeah.
And, mixed bag. I'm not big into like film meme accounts or like, like people that are just like, I don't know. It's just, I feel like that's like taking a piece of art and just like kind of like dumbing it down for fucking clout.
Yeah.
And like one of my things that I'm big on is like when people, people say thank you for showing this and that. Like I'm the least important thing that's at my screening, straight up.
Right.
The most important thing is the movie on the screen. And that's kind of the other downside of Letterboxd because it's also cultural clout.
Yeah.
But that's just with anything now. It's not just Letterboxd. It's like every fucking thing you do in life, I'm sure there's a person that's famous for just like going to McDonald's every day or whatever. And that's famous in some circles. That's why like, there's people that get famous and become fucking musicians or get record deals for just writing something fucking dumb on Instagram or YouTube or whatever, It's just the way it is. So it's like, eventually, and there probably already are across the country, there's people that like, because they're on Letterboxd, because they're Letterboxd celebrities or film critics or film celebrities, not in the sense of movie stars, but it's just like, there is that aspect of like, you're famous. Oh, this person's coming to this movie. Like, I know studios.
Yeah.
Movie studios count on the fucking, like, positive Letterboxd reviews and, like, influencer stuff. And that's something we didn't talk about. Like, it has an effect. Like, a certain person.
It exists in the fucking real world.
Yeah. It might not matter to the layperson that's going to go see a movie at a multiplex. But, like, they're also catering to, like, the cinephile, like, movie going crowd too.
Yeah, totally.
It's why they still do like, sneak preview screenings in LA all the time.
Yeah.
Cinematheque hosts a fucking shit ton of them.
Yeah.
And like, and part of the thing is like, my favorite thing is like when we do a screening, like, hey, you're not allowed to talk about what you saw. And then you go on Letterboxd and you see people like embargo breaking.
Hilarious.
Again, for cloud. I think to really wrap it up here, is that I think Letterboxd is good overall. I think, on the purest form of it, it's about just like, logging shit you watched and spreading things you love. Or maybe talking about things you fucking hate.
Building a community.
I mean, I think it does build community in a way like, a lot of other apps don't.
Yeah.
Because like the cinephile at their core, is definitely different than someone that's like deep in the music or like, other kind of like social media things.
Right.
Cinephiles spend their times in a dark room watching movies.
Like when going to a concert with some friends, right? I'd rather go out to eat beforehand before you go to the concert. But with a movie, I want to go to the movie and then I want to go out to eat afterwards because you want to sit around and talk about it. You're not going to sit around and talk about the concert.
Exactly.
I mean, sure you can, but there's not a whole lot to. Oh, that was awesome. Yeah, that was awesome. But like with a movie, there's a lot. It can very much so be a communal experience. And I think that film really is. It really is better when it is. What I mean? It's better when you can like pull at the threads and actually talk about the film.
And I think Letterboxd is a good tool for that discussion because like even if you're like as much as we talked about like bad ratings and stuff, like you can get into it and talk with someone's ratings and have a real discussion.
Yeah.
And like you can have a real time discussion about movies. I think that was something that got lost with film like a while back that is now like really come back is like I think Steven Soderbergh, like it's probably been a decade plus ago when like movies were changing. He's like people don't really discuss film in a way that they used to. Like, they might go have something to eat after the movie and discuss it, but that's it. But now I think people are really having more deeper discussions about film and like, logging in a Letterboxd is part of that reason why. And I think ultimately, in order for like, because there's been people like, oh, movies are going to die, movie theaters are going to go away. Fuck that. Maybe the models for like the way like the bigger multiplexes run might disappear, but for the part of the repertory cinema or the theatrical part we're working in, it's fucking booming and it's growing.
Yeah,
and a lot of things are happening because of that. Like, it's good that Quentin Tarantino owns the New Beverly and Vista because they're striking new prints of new movies to play the Vista. I've gone and seen more new movies this year than I have in any recent year. Because, like, well, cool, I'll go watch it on film. And yeah, I know most of those movies aren't shot on film. They're being put on film.
Some tell you.
Some tell you, and, like, it's unnecessary. But, like, anyway. But, like, the bigger point is, like, I think culturally, like, people are, like, kind of how, like, records had a big comeback.
Right.
Like, film as analog format is, like, appealing in the same way records are. And the fact that, like, they're striking new prints of new films, they're also striking new prints of older movies. There's been, like, newer 70 millimeter, like they did The Searchers and Vertigo and North by Northwest.
Fuck yeah.
There's, like, and, like, those movies are from, like, fucking 40s, 50s. Mostly 50s, I think. I can't remember the story. Yeah, they're all scopes. They're all 50s. So, like, that's a fucking good thing. And, like, even, like, people, like, again, not big as Christopher Nolan fan, I'm glad they're making fucking 60 or 70 millimeter prints of fucking Oppenheimer in, like, all his movies.
Right.
Because, like, if they're successful, that means someone else gets an opportunity to get their movie struck as a 70 print. Like, there's a 70 millimeter print of Nope. Jordan Peele. That's fucking great.
Right.
And, like, Sean Baker, one of the champions of, like, watching movies and, like, shooting on film. I know he didn't shoot all his movies on film. Like, we can talk about Tangerine being shot on iPhone, but, like, shot a Nora on 16 millimeter. They struck prints of it. It's a fucking beautiful movie. And, like, the fact that, like, one of the greatest living independent filmmakers has an opportunity to shoot on film and have his film print struck of his film, that's great. And, like, I think that's just the boom in repertory, and, like, it's Letterboxd because people give a shit. And, like, yeah, like, logging that I saw this in 35 millimeter is performative too, but it's also cool and not a bad thing. And, there's a lot of people that don't understand formats and that kind of stuff, and that's something else that not really important. But, like, anything that makes people go out and see movies and give movies chances they normally wouldn't give a chance to. And even if it's just for the act that, like, I want to log this on my Letterboxd. Like, I don't know how many people are coming to my screenings just because, oh, I wanted to log this movie on my Letterboxd. Now I can. That's great. So I think that's my closing thought. You got anything?
The verdict is in.
The verdict is in. So
we love Letterboxd.
We love Letterboxd.
We love you, Letterboxd.
Yep. All right. The jury has reached its verdict, and Letterboxd is not guilty of.
You're still allowed to exist, Letterboxd. You're welcome.
Letterboxd, I think, is a good thing. I think there's, with anything, there's things that are going to, like, muddy the waters. But I think overall, at its current state, it is a very positive thing for cinephiles, casual moviegoers, and people who like stats. All good things. But we're going to take one last commercial break here, and when we return, it'll be Read, Watch, and Listen here on the Cinematic Void Podcast.
It's been an hour. It's under S. Under S. Oh. How could I have done this? Doesn't make any sense. Look at it. There's no life to it at all. Oh, my nephew. Say cheese. Good direction, Marty. Here, this one, interesting. It's far too nostalgic. What do you think?
It's pretty.
Composition is forced, lighting is bad, angle is off. Too literal, too violent, too metaphorical, too dark. Here, we have the protagonist, but where's the antagonist? Huh? Where's the drama? Unavoidable. Gotta reshoot. Yeah, Timmy, that's your Uncle Marty. How'd you like to turn 5 again?
Welcome back. It is now time for... on the Cinematic Void podcast, where we talk about all the things we've been reading, watching, and or listening to since the last time we recorded a podcast. All right, Nick, what have you been reading, watching, and or listening to?
I've been reading the Neonomicon Alan Moore comic book. I've just been going back through that. It's one of my favorites. I don't know. I know I've been reading like 10 other books. Not a big deal. Just reading like 10 other books at a time.
I mean, I see one of these laying here.
Oh yeah.
I'm just like,
I don't think I had this last time, but I just got this book by Steve Chain, who has the straight up the hardest name of all time, Steve Chain.
Dude, Steve
That's
Chain,
sick.
Yeah.
I sent I sent a film to someone to a guy named like George Chimpley. So just a lot of good names today. But Steve Chain, Fly By Night. It's a book about John Landis and his court case after murdering a group of people.
Yeah.
So I bought this book, and I bought it and I just kind of threw it on the shelf, and it just said, like on the front, there's a nice gold stamp that says contains graphic content. And the back of it does have a photo of Vic Morrow like running with the kids in the water, you know?
Oh, wow.
It's like a big hardcover book. It's a nice book. I just like cracked it open once, and there's like a photo of the John Landis, like, you know,
his mugshot?
Mugshot. What do you call it?
Yeah. You know,
What do you call it
when the police take you in and take your little photo like you're at having a high school yearbook photo?
But so I opened right up to his mugshot and took a photo of that. I'm like, oh, that's funny, and just like closed the book again. And like a week later, I opened it up again, and there's definitely some like straight up decapitated heads in the
Holy
like
shit.
photos in this book. This book is crazy, dude. So I'm ready to rip into this thing as well, but.
Who the fuck took those? Like,
I don't
because
know,
they had to
man.
be like right after.
Oh yeah. No, it's like right there.
Now, is this the original book? Because I know there's another book that was like years ago about the whole trial. Is this like a reissue of that book?
I think it's a reissue of that book. So for watch, I've already looked at your watch list, and I hurried to watch this so that we could talk about this today. Because I've just been itching to watch it anyway, and I knew you just did. And that is The Substance.
All right. Do you want me to start or do you want to start? Because like I saw this in the theater, and you watched this at your house?
Yeah, I just watched this right here. It's on Mubi now.
You watch it with Ash from
I did.
The Boys Bible Study podcast. Shout out to him.
Mm-hmm.
Both of us have been on episodes. So, but I saw this in the theater,
Yeah.
and like, so I'm kind of curious like how it plays at home versus the theater. I'm gonna say was not in love with this movie.
I really enjoyed myself.
Mm-hmm.
But I do feel the same way, and I definitely have some things to say.
So I guess I'll go first because I saw it in the theater, and like I'm gonna say I think it's a technically well-made movie.
Sure.
I think Margaret Qualley and Demi Moore are fucking fantastic. Let's get that out of the way. I think it's well directed. I love the choices that like anytime it's like creepy, for lack of a better word, the creepy, slimy, slimeball men in the movie, including Dennis Quaid, when they're using like kind of the Terry Gilliam like wide angle Brazil style lens. I think that was kind of a nice choice and all that. But for a movie called The Substance, I feel like, and for its 2 hour, 20 minute or whatever it is runtime, I feel like a lot of that movie was, banking off of cultural osmosis or like, just assuming things are just basic tropes and didn't really have a lot to say outside of it. And because I felt like, you don't, outside of, Demi Moore is like an aging star doing aerobics, shit on TV, blah, blah, blah. But you don't get much more substance behind that. You just get a caricature. And granted, she's great and she carries the role, but it's just like, it just feels like there's just something empty to it. Same with Margaret Qualley's character when that happens, I mean, I guess this movie's been out enough that we can be spoilery.
Yeah, I think so.
Okay. I mean, I like the concept of it. I like that it's body horror. I do appreciate that they didn't go the David Cronenberg, like, very serious, very artistic body horror.
Mm-hmm.
It kind of went more towards maybe like the Frank Henlotter stuff, but like ultimately my biggest problem was like when they got to all the effects stuff and all the, you know, the ridiculous stuff, it felt like I was watching a Troma movie.
Yeah.
And I'm not the biggest Troma fan. Like, the reason I think like there's a good like Frank Henlotter is kind of the good go-between of like Cronenberg and Troma, where like, you know, some of it's campy.
Sure.
But like Henlotter made Basket Case, Frankenhooker, Brain Damage, and like there's a seriousness to how like goofy it can be and like a mean spiritedness where like Troma is just like schlocky.
Right.
And like as much as I was saying like the movie looked good, when it came to effects, they were all lit flat and stuff like that. Like it just felt like really fakey. It looked like it made it look cheap.
Yeah.
And that was me in a movie theater watching it.
Mm-hmm.
Now, what I'll say is like that crowd in that theater was having a great time with it. And I enjoyed most of it, but it was just like the whole time I had all this stuff in the back of my head. It's like, you know, it's like it just feels like it feels paper thin. And if you're going to have a 2 hour and 20-minute runtime, and like there's great stuff that went to me more is like when they're doing the substance switch, not to get, well, I mean, the plot is like she takes this thing and births like a younger variation of her but they have to keep switching every 7 days to keep like rejuvenated. And then when the younger version starts like, oh, I'm going to wait an extra day and like starts causing, you know, Demi Moore's character to kind of start rotting. Like, that's a nice twist. And then Demi Moore's like, I'm going to eat like shit during my 7 days I'm here. And then when we transfer back, the other one's going to be like on the toilet and getting sick because of all the gross shit. That shit's kind of funny. But like, I just feel like there was like, it just felt like there wasn't like a lot there other than you just kind of, oh, you know this trope. You just kind of go with it. What happens if you don't know this trope?
Yeah.
The other thing I had a problem with is that they showed Hollywood, or what was supposed to be Hollywood Boulevard and the Star Walk of Fame, and there was snow. It's like, it hasn't snowed in Hollywood in fucking forever. Like, why are you having seasonal changes in like Los Angeles? Come on now. I know this was made in France or whatever, but like, I don't know.
They should still know better.
Yeah. But yeah, it just like, it's like, I'm glad it wasn't, you know, full on Cronenberg worship, but I also don't like the fact that it just dipped too far into the Troma end of the spectrum.
It did. Well, as far as the Troma thing goes, it kind of makes me like that part of it kind of reminds me of like Malignant or something, which is not a compliment.
No, I thought I was not a fan of Malignant.
But the substance, it's just too much. I agree with everything you're saying, but also for me, like I would rate it much higher, because I do think it was very well made. It's just too much homage for me. Like there's just too many nods. Like we get it. You've seen all these movies that we've all also already seen. Like it just, I don't know. I just like the hallway didn't need to look like the fucking Shining. The blood bath at the end, you know, coming out of the, like, just all that stuff. Like, I still think it's a strong enough movie that it stands on its own, so it doesn't really need those types of things, like that student film nod to other films that, like, this is a 2.5 hour long, it might be an independent film. In fact, tell who made this.
I think there's a lot of different money that went into it. Like the one thing that I saw and I kind of wish had happened, and you know, I don't care about Dennis Quaid too much, but Ray Liotta was supposed to play that role.
Oh, interesting.
And like, I kind of feel like because Dennis Quaid has kind of become a slime ball later in life. He's not as crazy as Randy Quaid.
True.
Like he's not out in the fucking woods off the grid.
That's a sick family.
I think all the Quaids I think it's the Quaids and the Baldwins of all like just like different tiers of just like
they just rock
or ridiculousness, however you want to go with it.
Yeah.
Jesus Christ.
They rock.
Shitter's full. Anyway, I kind of would have loved to seen Ray Liotta in it because like Ray would have just been like a fucking lunatic.
Mm-hmm.
Because he's like, I don't know, man. I like Ray Liotta a lot.
Oh,
I think
for sure.
Ray is was criminally underrated, as it were. Like, I feel like, everyone knows him from Goodfellas, but like, just dive into his whole fucking filmography. Ray's fucking top notch. So I kind of would like to see that. But like, there's a couple other things I want to say. I think I'm glad this movie played movie theaters with a pretty packed house. I saw this at an AMC in Burbank. Yeah. And it was like in a bigger size theater, and it was decently packed. Like, surprisingly. And I think it had a lot of good screenings. And like, shout out to Mubi. We were talking about distributors. I think Universal was handling some theatrical on it. But like, Mubi, who is like basically a streaming service, like sort of rival to Criterion, who've now gotten into the new movie sector. Like, they have a couple other things. I think they've also been doing a re-release of The Fall, the Tarsum Singh movie. The guy directed The Cell, like, right. So they're kind of they're another player in the art house sector, so to speak. The fact that it had a pretty good theatrical run, but now it's on Mubi, which means it's like you have to have a streaming service. I know a bunch of people that are like, oh, I want to check this out, so they got their free Mubi subscription and like cancel that shit. I think Mubi's like $16.99 a month or something like that. I mean, I definitely got it so I can watch Substance, but I've had Mubi in the past, and I definitely like it. Like, there's definitely cool stuff on there. Too many like callbacks to other films, like all throughout. Like, it's just way too fucking many. We get it, dude. We know. Like, I don't know. I think it's a very competently made film. I just wish that all those not. I mean, even the bathroom is, a nod to 2001. I mean, it's just hell, they did the Stargate sequence. I mean, yeah, like, it's just too much, dude. But otherwise, Substance is cool. I also just watched. Oh, before you jump off the Substance, so I'm like, let me just shut this down. No, we both watched it. But we both watched it. Please. But I do want to say something, as we've been talking about Letterboxd and all that. This is another movie that's been championed by people on Letterboxd, and I'm glad it's had a theatrical run. And then there was something we were going to talk about, and I decided it's not worth talking about because I don't really want to give it too much dap or like too much space, so to speak. Yeah. But like, Substance doing well, and then you had something like Terrifier 3, which was a completely independent film playing theaters and making like $50 million and making more money than Joker 2 or whatever that shit was. And I saw a lot of people saying this is a good thing, and I'm like, I think it's a good thing that Substance is doing good, because like, even though I think I agree with you, it's too homage heavy, I'm kind of glad something like that's playing a multiplex. Yeah. And like, to an extent, I'm glad Terrifier 3 has done well, but I also hope that like, this is not people taking the wrong lessons from like that movie, because like, I haven't seen Terrifier 3. I haven't seen Terrifier 2. I saw Terrifier 1. I was like, fuck this, I'm out. Yeah. Like, I just have no desire. And like, you can tell me the guy who plays Art the Clown is cool and all that stuff. And I'm sure he is. I'm sure he's a nice guy. And I'm sure the guy that makes the movies is a nice guy. As we've already said multiple times on this podcast, that shit ain't for me. Yeah. And I think, like, I don't know, it's something about the excessiveness and like kind of the lowest common denominator thing. It's like, I'm kind of on the Sean Baker side of things with this, in that like, I want to see more adult dramas get theatrical play. I'm okay with genre stuff playing well, and when we talk about my watch, it's going to be a lot of genre stuff. But like, ultimately, I just don't want a bunch of fucking Terrifier clones. I'd rather have people do kind of like weird body horror stuff that might land or might be too homage-y and like open that door. I just want people to make just better films and take better leaps and like, take their influences and not make them just so fucking heavy-handed. That's what I want to see. And again, I think the Substance, you might get more of the latter, because there's going to be people that have watched the Substance that have no point of reference for Brazil 2001, like David Cronenberg, Frank Henenlotter, even fucking Trauma, that might get inspired from it. And I think it's a good thing, but I think like Terrifier is just make a fucking dumb slasher and then try to like add some like fucking weird story arc that I don't know. Yeah, I'm with you. People go see Terrifier, and there's going to be shitty slashers for the next 5 years. I mean, that's what happened. People go see fucking Beetlejuice 2, and there's just going to be Goonies 2, and fucking Rad 2, and fucking Roger Rabbit 2, and all this other shit that nobody asked for. Well, they asked for it, but like 20 years ago, or 30 years ago. Exactly. But now it just now makes financial sense. Gleam in the Cube 2. No one's asking for that. Fucking Dirty Dancing 2. There was a Dirty Dancing 2. Fuck. It's like To the point, going back to, I mean, it was Dirty Dancing to Havana Nights or something like that.
Oh, that was kind of recent.
Yeah, that was like within the last like 5 to 10 years. Like, so someone beat you to it.
I projected Memories of Murder, the Bong Joon-ho film, last weekend at the Egyptian, and I had too much work to do, so I couldn't watch it. So I bought the Criterion and watched it the next day, and it still holds up. I love this movie. It's great. You've seen it.
I've seen it. I should probably pick up this Blu-ray. I actually saw it when it played theatrically.
Oh, that's sick.
I saw it maybe 2009 when I went back to, or 2009 or 2010. I forget what year it came out, but like I had gone back to Maryland. Actually, it was 2010. So I had gone back to Maryland, and I went with Holcheck and DeHaven. We went to the Charles, and we saw this.
Nice.
So it's a great fucking movie, and like, you know, it's crazy thing the guy that made the host in this won a fucking Oscar for Parasite.
Totally.
But I don't know, man. Got skills. Actually, he's got a new movie coming out, doesn't he?
He does, and I know it just got postponed. Is it Robert Pattinson?
Yeah, I saw a poster for it, like hanging up at
it just got postponed by like a month or something.
That's weird. No, don't know why.
I also just watched Full Metal Jacket for the millionth time in my life, and goddamn, it still hits every time. And I still always fucking notice something new somehow. And I just watched Secrets and Lies, Mike Lee, nice adult drama.
Mike Lee's fucking great.
Yeah, totally.
You seen much more of his stuff?
I think this might be my first.
Yeah, definitely. You know, I don't know if it's on the Criterion channel or not, but like he should have a good bit of stuff. There's like Naked and things like that. I think I forget what title Severn put out a Mike Lee movie too. Okay, if I'm not mistaken. Like, yeah, Mike Lee, one of the great like British filmmakers. Like,
fuck yeah, okay.
Like, I think he just had a movie. I think his last movie just came out, or I might be misremembering something, but I think he directed his last movie and he retired. But like, yeah, adult fucking dramas, like bring that shit back too.
Let's go. And listen, I've been listening to the new RZA classical record. It's RZA, the Colorado Symphony, and Christopher Dragon. Nice name, Christopher.
You think that's his real name?
Hell yeah. It's called A Ballet Through Mud. And I've just been, I don't know, I made a conscious decision to listen to mostly like instrumental music the past week or so. So that was nice to find. What else? Some Tim Hacker. I don't know. And then, you know, I hit some stuff that did have some words like Count Me Out. Fucking what the hell?
What is going on here?
Dude, there's this I'll close with there's a weird John Lennon Mind Games record that's on streaming right now, and I don't know if it's like officially licensed or what, but it's like this weird like meditation version.
Huh.
And so it's just these like droned out like fucking, you know, it's just like insanely droned out versions of John Lennon Mind Games. That's about it for me.
For read, I'm still reading Cockfight by Kayla Janice, the book on the movie and the book that the movie was adapted after, Cockfighter. Probably like 2/3 way through it now. I'm not reading as fast as I probably should be, but I know she found some extra copies and she's got them posted up on her site now. So if you want to grab them before the reissue comes out, probably next year.
Cool.
But yeah, right now it's out of print. We talked about The Substance already, so I don't have to get into that. I watched Mads on Shudder.
What if we just went right back into The Substance again?
Just like, well, now we can really get into it on this. No. I watched Mads, which is a French zombie movie shot in one take.
Okay.
And I read somewhere that they shot the movie in its entirety 5 times until they got it right.
Okay.
It's one continuous take. No cuts, no nothing.
It's not some like rope trickery?
No. I mean, with digital, you can just fucking run forever.
Yeah.
And it's, you know, obviously it's a gimmick, but it's well done. It's directed by the guy directing the movie Them. Do you remember that from the early 2000s? It was kind of a, you know, inspiration for The Strangers and things like. I didn't.
It's like a French home invasion thing or something. Yeah.
And I didn't realize it was, when I found it was the same guy, it's like, damn. Like, because I thought it was like some, like young, new, like French filmmaker just going crazy, because there seems to be a lot of those popping up. But no, it's pretty cool. It's an interesting way to do a zombie movie.
Mm-hmm. Does it feel gimmicky, or is it just...
I mean, at times it kind of does, because like obviously you have to like move in position to kind of like do some okey dokes and things like that.
Sure.
But like overall, it kind of works, and you kind of start forgetting that it's just a never-ending camera shot.
Yeah.
Like there's enough movement and variances. Like they're driving in a car, and like there's a lot going on. So definitely worth checking out. I also watched Heretic by the guys who wrote Quiet Place, the original one, and then they also did Haunt. Beck and Woods, I think, is what they go by.
Okay.
I enjoyed this a lot. And I want to say Hugh Grant gives a fucking great performance, chewing scenery, having a blast being a fucking bad guy. Definitely breaks down theology in ways in it. It's an interesting horror thriller, and there's definitely some twisty stuff in it, which your mileage might vary on how much you want to go with it. Definitely, it's about two Mormon girls going to meet someone to like try to convert them, kind of thing, and then like they can't leave the house. So it's really interesting. I enjoyed the shit out of it. I think, like, I don't know, because it also goes into like there's a thing in it, and it kind of spoiler, but it goes into the repetitions of like a copy of a copy of a copy, because it talks about like there's the Holly song that Radiohead accidentally kind of ripped off for Creep, and then it talks about the Lana Del Rey song that ripped off Creep, and like how like that how like taking that philosophy to religion of like taking original thing and then transforming it somewhat, but it's still the same, even though it has some different shit on there. I thought that was kind of an interesting little thing to throw in there.
Cool.
Again, Hugh Grant he should do more like horror, and like I think he might be having to pivot to like his next phase of his career.
They finally forgave him.
I think he's been forgiven.
Yeah.
I mean, it was a hooker years ago. I think people forgave him.
It's been a while.
Maybe Elizabeth Hurley hasn't forgave him.
Yeah.
But I think most of the world has probably forgot that shit. Listen, I went on this weird deep dive because after I did that Q&A with Moby for his vegan punk rock movie and the mention Earth Crisis, something popped in my head about like something from way back in the day. We're gonna get off topic, and for those of you like, I'm gonna say a lot of things people are like, what the fuck are you talking about? So there's Earth Crisis, probably the best known vegan straight edge hardcore band ever. Would you agree, disagree?
That's fair.
There's some other bands you and I were listening to. There was a band called Reversal Man. They were from Florida. They were part of like, there's a whole scene of stuff like Palacta, Asshole Parade, Combat Wounded Veteran. So in a lot of those bands, not all of them were like straight edge and vegan too. And I guess like because Earth Crisis became very popular and were kind of militant to some ridiculous degree, like there was people, not necessarily them, but there was people that were in that band that took it way too fucking serious. So there was an incident from years ago. Reversal Man wrote a song called Get the Kid with the Sideburns, which was about an incident that happened between them and Earth Crisis at an Earth Crisis show, where I guess like they were like kind of fucking around or something like that, and Earth Crisis took umbrage to it, and like
they threw hot dogs at them.
I think they're throwing eggs or something like that. There's a mix. So
yeah,
I was like, someone's probably had to do a podcast or something about this. So I forget the name of the podcast. I forgot to write it down. But there was 2 clips, and they interviewed like at different times, not the same time. So it wasn't real. So it was like they interviewed Scott Krause from Earth Crisis, and he gave his perspective of it. And then they interviewed a guy from Reversal Man, but it was a guy that was like not at the actual show, the incident, but went there afterwards. And it was kind of like this unique like Rashomon effect, where like it kind of sounds like everyone's point of view is valid, and there's no real right or wrong answer to it.
Yeah.
But like, it's just, I don't know. It's dumb to think of a thing that we listened to in like the 90s, and now like fucking 20, almost 30 years later, it's like podcast dissecting what actually happened. And it's funny because like when they talked to Scott from Earth Crisis, he's like, yeah, we used to not acknowledge that shit because we felt like they were feeding into it, and then it would just cause more of it. But he's like, in hindsight, we should probably address some of that stuff because it just made us look like we were just like sitting there being made to look like the biggest bad guys in the world because we never directly addressed it or just acted like we weren't acknowledging it.
Yeah.
So there was that. I threw on Oz Rotten's The System Works, one of the greatest like punk albums ever written, which is shockingly on iTunes right now and probably Spotify. They do clip out the like 5 minutes of sound clip in front of the first song.
Yeah.
Probably because they didn't clear any of it because it has stuff from like I think Noam Chomsky and like the Black Panthers and things like that. Listen to that on Tuesday for no particular reason. The election day, whatever. Speaking of instrumental stuff, I listened to the new Blueprint record, Chamber Music 2, which is primarily instrumental hip hop record. He did one of these like way back in the day, which is really great. So he kind of did a sequel of it. There's a couple songs that people rap on and stuff, but like primarily it's just like instrumental hip hop, and it's really fucking sick. Listen to a couple of releases by this band called the Marshmallow Ghost. It's kind of somewhere between like lo-fi pop and like post rock, like Explosion in the Sky type stuff. Like it gets kind of epic, even though it's lo-fi. But it's all Halloween centric, and sometimes there's like people singing, and other times it's like sound collages over it and like haunted house stuff. Melissa LaMartina, who is married to Chris LaMartina, who does like WNUFs and stuff like that. She does like a narration on their newest record, which is pretty cool. It's like a sound recording of like someone doing like some Halloween like recipe thing, but then there's like a weird sinister occult thing at the end of the like it's like a field recording and then songs cut into it. So kind of unique. Definitely dug it. Freddie Gibbs dropped a new record called You Only Die Once.
Oh yeah, I've been listening to that too.
Yeah, it's pretty fucking good. And dropping the same day was a new West Side Gun record, Still Praying, which pretty decent too.
Cool.
So it's been good hip hop dropping. Then the last thing I listened to is the new Sect record, Plagues Upon Plagues. Definitely, how would you describe it? It's not really a hardcore record. It's not really like a I don't want to use stoner rock because I know they're all straight edge, but like doom metal, like what would you call it? Just like a sludgy hardcore record?
I mean, this new one is a little different.
Yeah, because there's not too many. There's a couple of fast parts and maybe a fast song here and there, but it's definitely like more. I don't know how this. You know what it reminds me of? Like bands like The Mod or like fucking Kylesa or like things like that.
Yeah.
Which is like something that hasn't been like revisited by anyone in years, because either like you're full sludge metal or you're for like full on fast hardcore, grindcore and stuff like that. So it's like this weird sweet spot of like kind of sludgy, almost bluesy, melodic, like metallic kind of hardcore, and then some fast parts. It's really interesting. It like, but there's a really dark vibe to it, and like there's a couple times like I had to turn off because like I feel kind of like fucked up and like in a weird mood after listening. It's really effective. I don't know what the fuck they were doing on it, but
cool. Fuck yeah.
And it's also funny because two of the members of this band were in the Moby doc too.
Oh, nice.
Which I didn't realize. I was listening to this record before I was like saw the Moby doc, and I was like, hey, there's because it's the drummer of the band is also the drummer of Fall Out Boy, but he's apparently like been a hardcore straight edge dude for like forever. And then there's Chris Calhoun, who's in some of the greatest bands that ever existed, Left 4 Dead, The Swarm, and a whole bunch of others. And Sect's been pretty fucking consistently great. And this record's just, it's different, but in a good different, I think.
Yeah.
But anyway, that's going to wrap up this episode of the Cinematic Void podcast. Guess what we're going to do for the next episode, Nick?
Brewster McCloud?
Yes, we are continuing our half-ass attempt at doing the Robert Altman series, and we're going to watch another Robert Altman movie, if I can say his fucking name. We're going to be watching Brewster McCloud, a movie that I didn't screen, but I introduced at the Cinematheque during the Shelley Duvall tribute, which obviously will come up as we're talking about it. And I think probably through 2025, we'll get through a lot more Altmans. And we're going to work on being a little more consistent. And the fact that, like, you know, we're watching Bruce McCloud and then recording that shit soon should be a good indicator that we are trying our goddamn best to get more prolific again. Will it happen? Well, you'll find out when the next episode hits the feed. Also, I do want to mention, for those of you who might have noticed, like the Teen Wolf episode had dropped off of Apple Podcasts for a bit. And then it mysteriously returned. I don't know what the fuck that was. But it was going, like, I think Glenn, because he was working on the Lonelier Than God pod stuff, and he was asking me questions like, hey, you're missing an episode. I'm like, what the fuck? And, like, I could, like, it wasn't on the feed, but I looked into all the back end stuff, and it was, like, there and said publish. So it was just, like, some weird glitch in the Matrix. So hopefully that shit doesn't happen again. But
Probably something to do with the moon.
yeah, the full moon, The moon wasn't full, so the podcast turned into nothing. Then the moon came back, and the podcast came back. That'd be kind of funny if that's how that episode worked. I don't know. Can you actually do that with a podcast? Have it on moon cycles? I mean, it's a good gimmick. It's like, did you get it? Did you listen to it? Now you missed it. Or it's just the kind of thing where it's like, well, I ain't going to fuck around listening to that.
Yeah, that one.
That's that one. But until next time, see you in the void.
With no trivia, roll like cocaine straight from Bolivia.